across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning to you. Welcome back to the show. Well, welcome to the show, indeed. Welcome back to Talk, the home of common sense. Whether you're listening on DAB+ radio or on your smart speaker, watching on YouTube or your connected device, I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer and I'm delighted to have your company this very chilly Monday morning. Hope you're wrapped up warm. Hope you've got a nice day ahead. We're going to certainly try and keep you company, keep you entertained for the rest of the day. Can I just remind you, by the way, because I've kind of forgotten to mention this on air, but as of next Monday, which terrifyingly is the 1st of December. I think we're going to have to start getting those Christmas decorations up. Our talkTV app is on the move. All of your favourite shows and podcasts will continue over on the Talk app. So if you're watching or listening on the talkTV app right now, you'll need to download the Talk app. Very complicated, isn't it? From the App Store or Google Play. Do it now. Do it in the next couple of moments, and then you've got it ready because as of next Monday, the talkTV app won't exist. Is everyone keeping up at the back? No, I don't understand any of this either, but we're going to manage it. Anyway, don't forget, if you do miss anything from my show, you can go to my YouTube page, the Julia Hartley-Brewer Show, and if you hit subscribe, you never have to miss a thing. Coming up in this hour, we are going to be talking, of course, about the budget. It's coming up, of course, on Wednesday. Rachel Reeves is going to unveil not £15 billion of welfare cuts, because, of course, the economy is in an absolute state and we can't afford everything, and she's having to raise taxes. No, for some reason, she thinks spending 15 billion quid more on welfare is a good idea. I know, but meanwhile, she's going to tax a lot of people more. Oh, no, and not just those who own mansions worth more than 2 million quid, who may or may not be able to afford that extra tax. She's also going to, astonishingly, well, not astonishingly, they all do it, freeze the thresholds on with all the different tax bands. So people on very low incomes are going to start paying tax. People on really very average incomes just making ends meet right now. If you get a pay rise to match inflation, yeah, 40% of that is going to go to the tax man, or indeed in this case, the tax woman. But don't mention that, because that would just be sexist, and we've got to stop being nasty, as Mark has pointed out about the Chancellor, because it is just, of course, sexism. We're also going to be talking about what's happening in business as well, because businesses are freaking out, for want of a better expression, about employers' rights and the taxes they're going to be hit with. Meanwhile, Sharon Graham, the leader of one of Britain's biggest trade unions, Unite, has called on Keir Starmer, Rachel Reeves to be ousted if the budget hits working class households. Well, I hate to tell you, sweetheart, it is going to. So bye-bye, Keir and Rach. Kemi Badenoch is going to be speaking at the Confederation of British Industry conference today, along with also actually the Employment or the Business Secretary as well. But she's going to be criticising the Employment Rights Bill, which businesses are, again, more and more worried about every day, because basically you're right from day one to request flexible working, to basically get all the rights of a full-time worker pretty much on day one, even if you've been hired to do, say, a Christmas job at the start of December. Will those jobs then disappear? Well, we'll talk about that. And also we're going to be talking about Prince Andrew, or as was the paedophile friend, formerly known as Prince Andrew. He's getting extra pressure on whether or not he should actually agree to be probed by the Senate in the United States about what he knew and when about Jeffrey Epstein's trafficking of underage girls. Keir Starmer has added pressure, saying anyone who knows about these things should actually be giving information to the authorities. Meanwhile, we're also going to be talking about the more than 200 children, some as young as 10 years old, primary school-aged children who are going to be taking part in an NHS trial ordered by Wes Streeting, the Health Secretary, for puberty blockers. So we already know that these are unsafe drugs. We already know they devastate lives, and they are given to perfectly physically healthy children to damage their bodies. But campaigners are planning a legal challenge. We're going to talk to one of those, James Esses, later in the show, to stop this unethical trial, basically making healthy children guinea pigs for a political ideology. It is, I mean, I'm sorry, we're in Joseph Mengele territory here. We really are. I want to hear your thoughts on all of those big stories, particularly about the budget, particularly an extra 15 billion quid of your or my money going to, let's face it, the shirkers. While the workers get taxed more, and businesses who give the jobs to the workers and provide all the growth in this economy, also get taxed more. Your reaction, please? Particularly love to hear from you if you run a small business as well. You run a big business. You're not the CBI. Pop along and give us a call. Give us a call on 0344 499 1000. You can text the word talk and your message to 87222. Get in touch with us on X at talkTV. Calls are charged at the national rate. Text costs one standard network rate message. Delighted to say joining me today, not just you with your brilliant phone calls and lots of top guests, but commentator Sam Armstrong, as always on a Monday morning.
Good morning.
Now, we've got to start with the budget.
Yeah.
I mean, the entire conversation of the last year in the public, among the sensible people, but down the pub in the office room, is we're all taxed too much.
Yeah.
Public services aren't working very well, and we need to spend less on welfare. I mean, I don't think there's anyone who's paying too much attention, unless you're, I don't know, a complete like Corbynista lunatic who doesn't think that we need to curb the ballooning welfare cost. And yet, for some reason, the Chancellor is going to add £15 billion to the welfare bill on Wednesday. Now, some of that is going to be included with an interest rate, an inflation matching increase in benefits. Now, people on the lowest incomes face the highest issues with inflation because it's food and energy and things like that. I don't have an issue with that. I have an issue with the number of people claiming benefits rather than if you're entitled to benefits. I think you should be able to afford to eat and heat your home. But scrapping the two-child benefit cap, it's unbelievably unpopular, including among Labour Party voters. More than 50% of Labour voters disapprove of scrapping the cap. But Labour MPs want it because they think this will relieve child poverty. What on earth is she thinking?
Well, the reality is this. We'll come to everything else that Rachel Reeves is saying. But she is, for now, a puppet of the Labour Party's far left wing. Think what you like about Keir Starmer's great revolution of the Labour Party. The reality is the rot that set in under Jeremy Corbyn is still there in the form of the Labour MPs that were selected when Momentum and Corbynism were in the ascendancy. And despite having a bumper majority, Keir Starmer is very, very, very much in hoc, controlled by a platoon of Labour MPs within the parliamentary party that believe in mad far-left ideals that are a million miles away from the ordinary concerns of Labour voters. And what is the result of that? Well, we're about to see a budget that finally draws a line under the fact that if you want to get by in this country, if you want to do well, then here's what you've got to do. You've got to break the laws. You've got to have as many children as you possibly can. If you do that, if you're sat in a council estate and you can't get, and your house is falling down, it's easy. Just pop a couple more out. All of a sudden you'll get bumped up the queue. Even better if you're an asylum seeker, and you are going to be able to suck more and more and more and more out of the system. And who is going to pay for it? Well, the bloke who lives in the house next door. He gets up at 6 in the morning because he has to drive to be on a building site. By the way, taxes to drive are going to go up.
But we're cutting rail fares.
But we're cutting rail fares for the wealthy commuters.
Which are roughly like 3% of commuting journeys.
It is madness. This government, more and more and more, every single day, proves the fact that the Labour Party has just turned its back on working people.
It is, and also it's just entirely and utterly consumed on every issue with the concerns of lefty middle-class people in Islington and Hampstead. These are the things, these are their talking points. Oh, the train's so expensive. Most people in this country don't get a train even once at any point during any year. They certainly don't commute to work by train. It's unbelievably expensive. Yeah, but that's what they don't have a train station near them or near their work. They live near their work or they drive to their work. It is just, they're so out of touch on these things. But this is the thing. The two-child benefit cap, we're told about all the charities, they've all clubbed together, big umbrella letters saying, you really, really, really want to stop child poverty. You need to basically give more money to parents who've got big families. But no, if you really, really want to stop child poverty, those parents need to go out to work. The vast majority of those parents not working, and if they are working, I've looked at their official statistics available. The vast majority of them only have one parent working, and they often don't work full time, but have got 3, 4, 5, 6 kids. So here's the solution. You can either both get a job yeah, and work full time like everybody else does with kids, or you can not have all the kids. You can just, I mean, we have this thing called free contraception. Now, if your religion, and it often is the case that you're looking at a large minority of those who've got these bigger families are Bangladeshi and Pakistani heritage families, and they have larger kids. That's the normal sort of social model. That's fine. But if you want to have a load of kids, you're gonna have to pay for them. I really object. I have so many friends. One really good friend of mine has got 2 kids, and she got pregnant a 3rd time. She sadly lost it, but she was genuinely saying, we can't afford a 3rd kid. We literally are barely making ends meet right now. This is about 20, 30 years ago. We can barely make ends meet. What do? She goes, I don't want to abort, but she was absolutely horrified. Although, would have loved another child, but they couldn't afford another child. And yet she pays taxes to this day.
Yep.
To fund families who went, we can't afford another child, but we'll just get everyone else to pay for them. And bearing in mind, this is not child benefit. This is not the 20-odd quid a week that you get, child benefit. That's not capped for anybody. You get that for every child. This is $3,500 a year. $3,500 a year per child. They're not tapering it. It's not like for the 3rd child. $3,500 extra a year for every child that you have. This is categorically insane.
Yeah, and look, there are hundreds of thousands of families every year that are making decisions that basically they would love to have an extra kid. Yep. They're working, they're in a job, they've not got their hand out, and they're being penalised. And we all know the types, because we all saw the articles all through the noughties when this was in place, with feckless father of the year that's got 13 different kids from 8 different women going around the estates being as despicable, deplorable.
By the way, I've got no time for those women either. Choose a better father for your kid. Feel very strongly about this, ladies. Choose a better father for your kid.
And have some personal responsibility. And by the way, if you make really, really bad decisions in life, one of the things that's going to happen is your kids are going to have a worse time.
Yeah.
And there are parents that got up this morning at the crack of dawn when the sun was far from getting up, that went out early in order to provide a better future for their kids, to work hard, to give it to them. And what does the Chancellor of the Exchequer, their government, turn around at the end of the week and tell them? It's, no, for the people that did none of that, for the people that never make an effort, for the people that are swinging the lead, we're going to take more money off you. So, by the way, you're working on Saturday too, so that we can fund more, because we've got some mad Corbynista student union lunatics running the show, and that's what we're doing, because they're our people, and we don't care about you.
Exactly. And the Transport Secretary was doing the media round yesterday on Sunday, and she was saying, no child should lose out because of the choices their parents make. I mean that's.
Everybody does.
Everybody
does.
Of course they do. That's why parents work hard. That's why when people have kids, the usual thing is that mums will often work part-time, work for a bit, or work part-time for a bit to be around for their kids, because that's what kids need and families need. And dad will do extra hours. That's actually, people can say, oh, it's sexist. No, that's the norm. That's what happens. And dad works extra hours and actually misses out on family time a lot to fund that and do the right thing. People don't go and just splash out on like a new car or a big night out because they're trying to save for a future for their kid, to buy a home in a nicer area, to get their kid into a better school, to make sure they can. I remember my husband talking about it. His dad worked Saturdays for years so they could do a week's holiday in a caravan park in North Wales, and you're just like so grateful to that, the extra work that went in to do kids. So we're saying that should we give every kid a week in a caravan park in North Wales, even though their dad doesn't work the extra hours? It is such a lack of understanding of how families work, what motivates human beings. I don't want kids to suffer, but here's the thing: I'm not saying these kids are not going to be starving, right? Yeah. The only thing that is forcing these kids to suffer is their feckless parents who don't do the job they're supposed to do to fund their children. It is that simple. End of. Full stop. Meanwhile, business is going to have to pay more tax. They're not employing people. We've got the business secretary right now. He's giving a speech and talking about breaking down business growth barriers. Give me a break. CEO of the Confederation of British Industry, Ray Newton-Smith, she says she's calling the government to deliver stability in the budget so businesses can invest, because no one's actually. We'd like stability, but in a good way. We don't want it unstably. We've got this whole big thing, this whole debate on the left, and Zach Polanski, the Green Party leader, has been asked about this as well. This idea that we can just borrow to hell with the bond markets. Yeah, you can say to hell with the bond markets. Who do you think you're borrowing from? You can say to hell with the loan shark as well. Who are you borrowing from? If they decide that our finances in our country are unsustainable, we are going to be up a very, very, very unpleasant brown creek, and we are not going to have even a thimble, let alone a paddle, to get us out of it.
No, but actually, Julia, the bond market, the people that lend this government money and charge interest on the basis of how much risk they're doing it, they're saying it's more expensive for the British government to borrow money at the moment because they're all sexists.
Oh, yes,
it's the same reason that Lakshmi Mittal, Britain's 8th richest man until the weekend, is moving to Dubai. It's because she's a sexist.
Labour donor.
He was more than happy to stay when we had a female Prime Minister, ×2. He was more than happy to stay in the country when for female business secretaries. But no, Rachel Reeves, he's decided it's nothing to do with the fact that she's putting up taxes everywhere she sees. It's nothing to do with the fact that she can't add up. It's nothing to do with the fact that her career seems to have involved answering the telephones in Lloyd's customer services department. It is because he is a sexist, so are the bond markets. That's why everybody is convinced that the British economy is going down the Swanee. And to turn around at the end of it, maybe, look, I'm a white man, maybe I'm not allowed to have this opinion.
Definitely not.
But to turn around at the end of having crashed the economy, maybe she crashed it slower than Liz Truss, but she certainly crashed the economy. To turn around at the end of that and say it's sexist to point it out, I mean, come on, is that the level of standards in British politics?
Yeah, I really object to the idea you can't criticise someone. And a Prime Minister can't give a good put down to a female MP because that's sexist. Oh, get over yourselves, ladies, really get over yourselves. The whole thing is utterly depressing and miserable. We could talk about the budget for the entire next hour, you know we could. I want to talk about Ukraine, and we will talk about Ukraine because there's a peace plan that, I mean, there isn't a peace plan. I mean, it's a surrender plan. It is genuinely terrifying. And we've got the British and the Europeans saying, no, we stand with the US. No, we don't. No, we don't. Donald Trump, who is unbelievably sound on Israel and is able to actually get all those live hostages. We're still missing 3 dead bodies, but I'm sorry, I think getting living people being tortured and starved in tunnels out was the #1 thing there, and stopping the ongoing bombing of Gaza. But again, Hamas is doing their best to bring that back. Well done, Hamas. But what he managed to do in the Middle East, whether it carries on, I'm not entirely convinced it will, but that was such an amazing deal. Yeah. And that was because he stood foursquare behind Israel, end of, nothing to discuss. He's not doing that with Ukraine. No. This 28-point so-called peace plan, I can't even use the words, I mean peace plan in inverted commas, it's clearly a Russian document. Sure. And indeed, some independent senators in America have actually said that they were told this precisely by the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio. His officials deny that, but there's no doubt at all. This is a document that, I mean, Russia can't, you know, they're absolutely loving it. The idea that you have a surrender plan that basically hands over territory to the aggressing power of territory they haven't even won, significant territory that would, in the next couple of years, if they decide to go again, give them a free approach to Kyiv, to seize the rest of the country and the capital, is absolutely mind-blowing. The Europeans, NATO, other members, they need to say, no, we are going to have to step up.
Yeah, and but by the way, I mean, the reason the Ukrainians are in this position in the first place, where they are entirely reliant upon the US, is because all of Ukraine's neighbours, which is the entire European continent, all of whom are developed, relatively wealthy nations, have failed categorically over a period of time to invest in defence such that they are able to support Ukraine. And I'll say this to the German Chancellor and to the French President and to the Prime Minister of Spain and whomever else is listening. If you are so desperate to help Ukraine, I mean this in the nicest possible way, stop spending money hand over fist on green nonsense. Yep. Stop impovering yourself with that. Stop spending money on woke rubbish and on welfare. Start investing in your defence like you've been told to do for years, and security of neighbourhood. Because say what you like about the US, but it spends between 5 and 6% of its GDP on its defence.
And has done for years.
Has done for years. It's invested massively. That's why it's the global superpower. And Europe has got rich of ignoring the need to invest in defence.
Particularly Germany. Particularly Germany. Yeah, exactly.
Which is also, by the way, by its dependence on Russian gas, basically bankrolled the invasion. Yep. So I'm absolutely prepared.
They talk the talk, but let's see some action.
I'm absolutely prepared to criticise Donald Trump, but that has to go with a complete condemnation
And Donald
Europe.
Trump was quite right in his first term to criticise NATO members who were not stepping up. We're not stepping up enough. Again, our Prime Minister talks the talk, and any increase in our spending is not happening until basically the end of the decade. Too late. I'm sorry, too late. Latvia and the other Baltic states will already be gone by then, guys. I mean, and again, we are in 1938. Wake up! We're in 1938. We ain't even in 1933, we're in 1938. Everyone needs to wake up. There is not a single sensible figure, there's not a single military expert, strategic thinker, geopolitical advisor who doesn't say we are in 1938. Everyone needs to wake up. And Donald Trump, I'm sorry, his actions, and don't say it's not, I'm always praising when I think he's done a good job. This is not Trump derangement syndrome. Donald Trump is acting exactly as you would expect a Russian asset to act. I'm sorry, there is no other explanation for the utter insanity of this peace plan at the current time. Let's also talk about the puberty blocker trial. I am so disgusted and appalled by this. I thought the Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, was the grown-up in the room. He is not. Full stop, he is not. Wes Streeting, I am so disappointed in you. Children as young as 10 are going to be given puberty blockers in an NHS trial. It is genuinely terrifying. These are children who identify as transgender. There is no such thing as a trans child. No child is born in the wrong body, and no child, unless they've got another specific medical health complaint, should not go through puberty. But in the wake of the Hillary Cass review, which basically shut down the Tavistock but said these drugs were so dangerous they should not be given to any child other than in a medical trial. So the NHS said, yay, let's take 216 children, some as young as 10, and do a medical trial. Now, this is Joseph Mengele territory. This is the stuff that happened in concentration camps in the Second World War. I'm absolutely serious. These are perfectly physically healthy children, who many of whom have issues. Look, over 80% of the children who've been given puberty blockers at Tavistock were gay or lesbian. More than 30% were autistic. 90% of those ended up going on to basic hormones that would basically render them sterile, render them infertile. These are drugs which reduce your brain development. They have bone density loss issues. We know that most of these children have come from troubled homes. They have absent or dead parents or abusive parents. Almost all of them have other issues, whether it's eating disorders, depression, or something else. And we're going to take a huge number of the children having this treatment, and a huge number of the children who are going to be in this trial are in care. By definition, children who are troubled. And yet we're going to say that these children, as young as 10, primary school age children whose packed lunch you still have to make, right? That they're going to be able to consent to have drugs that are going to delay the completely natural development of their body and will put them on a pathway to becoming infertile, incapable of any sexual function, absolutely God knows what to their body, damaging their brain development, damaging their bone development. I mean, this is obscene. This is criminal, in my view. This is against the Hippocratic Oath. Any doctor who takes part in this should only just be struck off. Any doctor who takes part in this should be in prison, in my view. Thank God there is going to be a legal challenge. We're going to talk to James Esses, who's part of that, and Kira Bell, who was given these drugs, I think, at the age of 14, and she has detransitioned. She's a girl. They thought she was a boy, and they gave her drugs. She's not a boy. She's a girl. I find this astonishing, and Wes Streeting has justified this. He's saying children with gender incongruence deserve safe, compassionate, effective care. Well, this isn't any of that. That healthcare must always be led by the evidence. We're now setting up clinical trials to build the evidence base we need to support vulnerable children properly. I will always follow expert scientific advice to get us there. That's the only responsible way to resolve this contentious issue and protect vulnerable children. It's not a contentious issue. There's no such thing as a trans child, and no child should be prevented from going through puberty because of mental health problems. That is obscene.
Yeah, and what really gets my goat about this is just how this trial is going to work. So they're going to get 250 kids.
216.
That are under 16, some 10. I mean, when I was 10, I thought it was cool to dress up in hoodies and wear
you were Spider-Man.
Wear a chain around my neck. I went through a brief chab phase. A brief chab phase. It was a bad mistake, and I'm glad that my parents said maybe not Samuel. I got the Samuel.
I love that it was Samuel at home. Yeah, I like that.
When I was naughty, it was Samuel. But look, we're going to say to half of them, right, we're going to give you these drugs that you think you believe because you read some nonsense on the internet, and then we're going to say to the the other half, OK, we know you think you believe that and we think they might work, but we're not going to give you that. And then we're going to work out which group ends up happier.
So it's not a blind trial.
It's a bogus trial. And actually, it is not the proper comparison. The other comparison is to say to the child that presents at age 10 having read some nonsense online, and we know that it's often autistic girls, often in the same groups as each other. Actually, no, you're mistaken about that. And do you know what? We have boys and we have girls, and they're very, very different. Nobody is proposing that we actually do what children have been told for generations, for millennia, for the entire length of human history, which is to be told the truth. And nobody has the courage in government, in the medical profession that work in this kind of area, to just say that actually that is what we need to tell young girls. So that it's particularly girls as well.
The growth is in young girls, and it's young gay girls. That's
they need to be told that, look,
this is conversion therapy.
We understand why you're confused, but let's talk about why, and let's go for a better path instead. No one's talking that. It's not a fair test. We know where this is ending up.
We already know that. The things you simply would not give. Don't you? I'm sorry, if you're not allowed to give Calpol to, you don't even give, at the age of 10, you don't even give a full paracetamol to your child when they've got a headache, OK? But let's give them puberty blockers. This is genuinely obscene. Where's streeting? You should hang your head in shame. You should hang your head in shame. I know you want to cosy up and you want everyone to like you, and you're desperate for your coalition. You're cozying up to sort of Muslims in your community, the Muslim leadership, because you're worried about losing your seat, and you're cozying up to the left wing of the Labour Party, who completely believe this complete lie, this lie that has been told to people, particularly to children, but it is genuinely obscene. What people want to do to their own bodies as adults is entirely up to them. I don't think the NHS should be paying for it, that's for sure. But what people do to children, no. You hurt a child's body, you should go to prison. Where's streeting? If you allow this to go ahead, I think you should be prosecuted. I really, really do. 10:28 is the time. We're going to take a break. I want to hear your thoughts, whether it's about benefits, about the Ukraine, whether it's about the Tavistock, these puberty blocker trials. You name it, give us a call. I want to hear your thoughts. 0344 499 1000. This is Talk.
is a story, though, because children as young as 10 are going to be given puberty blockers in an NHS trial. I think it's 250 boys and girls who say they're gender dysphoric are going to be tried out with these sort of puberty-blocking injections. What are they doing? That's child abuse. You can't use little kids as some sort of guinea pigs in these weird experiments to see if puberty blockers are harmful in the long run with some sort of mad pseudoscience where a kid as young as 10 going, oh, I think I'm a boy. When I was 10 years old, I probably thought I was a boy at one stage.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, the Home of Common Sense with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. Lots of messages coming in. Straight, I've got lots of calls on the board. We went a bit late. You know what Sam and me are like. But we're going to talk about the welfare spending of £15 billion more rather than that. Remember that £5 billion cut they couldn't get through? But we're all going to have our taxes go up simply because the Chancellor has got welfare diarrhea. Scrapping the two-child benefit cap included. I've asked for your thoughts on this. Mike says, I really can't believe that this horrendous government is about to do this. Adrian says, God help her, she's going to waste more taxpayers' money. Harry says, telling the public lies to get elected should be grounds for dismissal. Robert says, Britain will need a bailout before she goes. Joe says, and we thought this government couldn't get any worse. I'm scared, says Susan, for the future of this country. And Kieran says, we need her and Starmer gone by Christmas. This country is in dire straits. Let's go to Ben, who's on the line in Essex. Good morning to you, Ben.
Hi, Julia. How are you?
Very well indeed. Apart from looking ahead to the budget, what do you want to say, my love?
Yeah, this puberty blockers for children is an absolute disgrace. It's child abuse, and what I can't understand is why have we got regulations in for getting tattoos, but yet allowing this disgrace? I mean, the amount of youngsters that are going to do this grow up and feel confused and probably, want to commit suicide. It's just an absolute nonsense, and it is a disgrace.
It is extraordinary, and the Health Secretary saying, "Oh, this is a controversial, contentious issue." No, it's not. Not for the vast majority of people. The blue-haired, nose ring brigade, maybe not for everyone else.
I mean, you've got to be a little bit. Why can't we encourage these children to have therapy or something?
Well, not encourage them. They should be offered it. I mean, a lot of these kids are in care. They've got other issues. They've got depression. They've got, things. All that. They're kids, particularly girls, who are struggling with being gay. Well, you should say to them, "There's nothing wrong with being gay. Be gay. Don't enjoy it. Don't. It's. I mean, it's. Mate, I can't. I'm with you. I can't. I'm genuine. I'm as horrified as you are. Thank you very much indeed for that call, Ben. Look, we are the majority, folks. Let's go to Grace, who's in London. And Grace, you also want to talk about puberty blockers. I'm pretty sure this is a very big issue for a lot of us today.
Yeah, well, this all seems so peculiar to me because when I was a teenager, I had medical professionals all telling me, you absolutely must go through puberty. It is so essential. I was not...
Really? Who even told you that? I don't remember everyone having a conversation about that. Of course you went through puberty. I mean... Well,
I was starving myself at the time.
Oh, gosh, sorry.
And... Pardon?
Sorry about that.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I wasn't trying to elicit sympathy, but it's just, I wasn't deliberately avoiding puberty, but that was an outcome of it. Yeah. And medical professionals were all saying it's not only the nutrition from food that you need. You absolutely have to be, of a high enough body fat percentage that you start menstruating. Otherwise, you will end up with osteoporosis. Yeah. And I just, I was a young person, and also just could not cope with the idea of increasing my body fat, and I ended up with a diagnosis of osteoporosis. So seeing young people now being offered a way to block their puberty feels very incongruous with my experience at the time.
Well, it feels obscene and criminal and wrong.
Yeah,
because it is.
And I think about how our kind of societal worldview is changing. I was thinking, the guest of the last hour talked about how a lot of our society's values are based on Christianity. And one of the ideas in Christianity is that God loves us, but he doesn't always agree with us. And if you are a parent, you'll know that sometimes your kid may have an idea or want to do something that's not actually the best thing for them.
They might want to just live on chocolate and Red Bull and want to stay up till 3 a.m, but it doesn't mean you let them do it, does it? Grace, thank you so much. Really appreciate that call. 10:37 is the time. We're going to take a quick break. Then we're going to be going back to the budget and we'll talk to independent economist and general sensible soul, Julian Jessup. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Morning, welcome back. 10:40 is the time. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. Sam Armstrong still here, joined right now by independent economist Julian Jessup. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Well, you're going to have a very busy week dealing with the fun and games of the budget. We're all going to have a very busy week, basically contacting airlines and people who can find us a house abroad. So we go abroad to try and find somewhere where we're not going to be taxed to the hill. We've got the CBI, the Confederation of British Industry conference today, right next to Parliament. We've got the Business Secretary's been speaking there. We've got Kemi Badenoch, the Tory leader, speaking there. And there's a real concern around business about they've just got no idea what is happening. They're worried about higher taxes, but an even bigger concern, just the people who are employed by those businesses, workers, about more taxes on us as well. What are you expecting to happen?
Well, I just find this absolutely surreal. If I was sitting down trying to design the worst possible budget and the worst possible process leading up to it, I'd pretty much come up with this.
Nailed it, Rachel, nailed it.
It's extraordinary. I just picked two examples. First of all, everybody is clearly worried about the welfare bill spiralling out of control. But instead of announcing anything to tackle that bill, the latest suggestions are this is going to add maybe £15 billion a year to that bill.
They couldn't do a £5 billion cut earlier in the year, but they're going to add £15 billion, even though everyone everyone says, including the government, that the welfare bill needs to come down.
Absolutely. And then the second point is that, OK, if you're going to spend more money, what taxes are you going to raise to cover that gap? Now, if it was necessary to increase spending, then there is maybe a case for a simple, straightforward increase in, say, income tax. But no, they're not going to do that. They're going to raise income tax in a complicated, stealthy way by extending the freeze on tax thresholds. But they're going to top that up with what they're describing as a smorgasbord, but we all know is a dog's breakfast of smaller tax increases that may or may not raise any money, but will certainly deter people from spending, investing and saving in the UK economy. So it's just a package that is almost bound to backfire. Yeah. The markets won't like it. It will increase uncertainty for businesses in the future, not ease it. And pretty much everybody in the country is going to end up spending more tax, paying more tax than they would otherwise.
Well, this is the thing, but it's fascinating. Economists seem to be across the board, left and right, saying, look, but the answer is as you say, if you need to, bring more money in, you can't borrow anymore, and if you think their spending is necessary, if that's the way you're going to go, then the fairest and the biggest fundraising way, easiest way of doing it, is an across the board, very open and honest increase in income tax. And she was going to do that at one point. She put out the story, her people put out the story themselves and then pulled it back again. We understand because of, Labour backbenchers unhappy, Office of Budget Responsibility. We don't know what their thoughts were on it, but the idea was that working people on average incomes and below average incomes, they would actually get that money back with the national insurance going down, but pensioners, savers, high owners, they would end up paying more money. So they kind of could have done the wealth tax, but I'm assuming it was the optics of it, that at the end of the day, they said we're not going to put up income tax. And even if people were not a penny different in their taxes for the average person, let's face it, we know perfectly well that every single big board and every advert at the next election from Reform and the Tories and the Lib Dems would say they put up taxes.
Well, there's another problem in there with this whole process is, and I hesitate to do this, but I think Treasury officials and others briefing the media have simply been lying. So they claim that they claim that the plan to raise income tax was dropped because the OBR had come up with some more favourable economic forecasts. But you only have to look at the timetable the Office of Budget Responsibility publishes on their website. Yeah. So the key forecasts that would have included any more favourable economic assumptions were available at the end of October. Yeah. The new tax plan to raise the basic rate income tax came out in early November. So the idea that they dropped this because they had better OBR forecasts simply does not...
It's a load of nonsense. It was because Labour backbenchers were freaking out about losing their seats. What do you make of the two-child benefit cap set to be scrapped? We're talking, I think, £3.5 billion over the Parliament. It largely goes to families who are not working. This whole nonsense that these working families, vast majority of these families are not working, and where there is someone in work, it's one person and they're not working full-time. Oh, what a surprise, they've got no money and they can't afford to feed their 5 kids. But I'm not entirely sure why that's my problem as a taxpayer and why I have to pay for it when they could both, mum and dad, go out and get paid work like everyone else does.
Well, actually, I've got mixed feelings about scrapping the cap. But I think that some of what you said is actually unfair. A lot of people who do claim benefits are in work.
No, but they're not. The stats say they're in work. They're not. They're a couple. There are single parents as well. By the way, I've got loads of friends and family who are single parents who also work full time. But they are often, it's 2-parent families, and mum doesn't work and dad works part time. Well, I'm so sorry if you can't afford 5 or 6 kids on that salary. You need to either have fewer kids or get another job.
Well, consider the situation where somebody is in work and they happen to have 3 kids, and then for whatever reason, not their own fault, they lose their job. Yeah. And they then require benefits. Are you then saying that
they should get another job? I'm genuine. There are solutions. Get another job. And there's more urgency for you to get... Look, you might be out of work for a bit and that's difficult. Times are going to be hard. Yeah, they are.
Okay.
But that happens to people with 2 kids as well.
Debate here. But what I would say is that you can't have an anti-poverty strategy that is based purely on giving people more money. I think it has to be more to it than that.
Well, it has
it's rather like the old thing about teaching somebody to fish rather than just giving them a fish.
Well, also Gordon Brown
give somebody
tried
a fish they can eat for a day, teach them to fish, then they're going to be okay for the rest of their
Gordon
lives.
Brown tried that. There was a whole theory under New Labour. We'll just throw more and more money at people on low incomes, and then everything will be fine. No, children didn't get any better off. Parents didn't do a better job. The thing that gets kids out of poverty is mums and dads working. Oh, also mums and dads staying together. I mean, again, if you really want to help kids in poverty, keeping mums and dads together is a very, very good way of doing it. What do you make of just the likes of the Zach Polanskis? And I mean, you get this a lot from the left in the Labour Party. You get this from the Green Party, the Lib Dems, everyone. They're completely and utterly sort of, sod the bond markets. No one elected them. We can just keep borrowing. What's the issue? What do you make of that attitude?
I did watch Zach Polanski's interview on the BBC on Sunday morning. It was economically literate from beginning to end. And in particular, this point about dismissing the role of the bond markets. I mean, the reality is that if the government borrows lots of money from somebody, in the same way if a household borrows money or anybody else borrows money, the people that you borrow that money from are going to be interested to know what you're going to do with that money and whether you're going to be able to repay it. So the idea you completely ignore bond markets is clearly nonsense, and that applies to the government just as much as it does to anybody else. He does seem to have this idea, though, that the government is somehow different because they can tax people to death or print more money if they want to. But those policies clearly come with costs. If you tax people to death, then people leave the country. They don't create the wealth in the first place. And if you just print loads of money, then all you do is create inflation.
I mean, if
there are no free lunches here.
Yeah, if printing more money made our country rich, wow, would we be? I mean, we'd all be sitting in the sauna right now in our alpine retreat, having just having just finished a sailing holiday, because we've been printing money pretty much solidly since 2008, and it's not worked out that well for us, has it? 10:48 is the time. Fantastic as always to talk to you, independent economist Julian Jessup. Sam Armstrong, quick response to that?
Yeah, but I want to go back to the point about parenting, because I genuinely believe this country has an epidemic of bad parents that aren't doing it right. And actually, it is not the government's job to make up for good parents and bad parents. Actually, what we need to turn around and tell them is, look, do the right thing as a parent, stay with your other half, raise your kids together, make sure they go to bed on time. If we did that, if you actually cared about kids and the future
turn up to
of all
school
kids,
every day,
then we would have a national education campaign to ensure good parenting of every kid. And you hear silence, absolute crickets from this government.
Well, because you mustn't judge. You mustn't judge. And how people parent, that's what people that know, apart from the fact that there are things that work. Yes. And it's like someone saying, I eat chocolate cake to diet and it absolutely works. Well, whatever works for you. No. Look, we talk about parenting non-stop on this show. It is the number one issue. If you're looking at worklessness, you're looking at kids on benefits, you're looking at everything else. You are talking about that. You're talking about parenting. End of. 10:49 is the time. I'm going to take a quick break. Love to hear your thoughts on everything we're talking about. A lot of you getting in touch about puberty blockers. Thank you for that. I couldn't be more delighted that you're as angry and worried about that as me. But up next, we're going to be talking about the artist formerly known as Prince, Andrew, and what he did or did not know when about Jeffrey Epstein, and should he be telling the US Senate? This is Talk, the home of common sense.
never ever change. Just like I was saying, my mother's wisdom, she used to say in Bolton they'd vote for a pig with a red ribbon on it. Well, it's like Tunbridge Wells, they vote for a pig with a blue one in it there when there's some. But I think all that's turning around. But I'll tell you what really strikes me, though, having seen that poll and gone through the numbers, is if you add up Labour, Lib Dem and the Greens, and then you've got the SNP and Plaid Cymru as well, is they still get 50. There's still half the country who think those people should rule.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Morning, welcome back to the show. 10:53 is the time. Let's talk about Andrew, the artist formerly known as Prince Andrew, now Andrew Windsor Mountbatten, and whether or not he will or will not go to the US to help the US probe by the Senate into what on earth Jeffrey Epstein was up to. Well, let's talk to Talk's royal correspondent, Rupert Bell. Morning to you.
Morning, Julia.
Thank you very much for joining us. Well, pressure was heaped on ex-Prince Andrew about that over the weekend by none other than the Prime Minister, wasn't it?
Yes, and that seems a slightly unprecedented move, but the cynic in me suggests that maybe the Prime Minister wanted to deflect away from some of the questions about what's happening on Wednesday. But clearly this is an issue, and for the Prime Minister even to suggest it is a fairly unprecedented move. But it may just fall on deaf ears, because the last time that Prince Andrew tried to do an interview, you know where that went.
Yeah, absolutely.
It went south pretty quickly. So I have to say it will be a major change if he does come forward, remembering at all times that he says that he's got nothing. He is innocent of all these allegations and has firmly denied everything that has been thrown at him. Yeah. I get the feeling that the US Congress see him as an easy person to target, while all the political ramifications around President Trump releasing these files. And Prince Andrew seems the easy target in all this. But
well, that's because there are so many emails and you know, there's photographs of him with Jeffrey Epstein when he went to break off his friendship with him by staying in his house for 4 days. But this is the thing, I mean, I don't know why Keir Starmer thinks this bats it away for him. I mean, he was asked a question, he didn't bring it up himself. Anyone who's got information should give evidence. Well, Peter Mandelson, I mean, he referred to Jeffrey Epstein as his best friend. Lord Mandelson, appointed for bizarre reasons by our Prime Minister to be the ambassador to the US, and then had to sack him for his relationship with Epstein. I mean, he described him as his best friend. You'd think he'd probably know something about it, and surely no implications against him as a gay man that he wasn't involved in the trafficking of young 14-year-old girls.
Well, this is it, you see, and that's where I think Prince Andrew is the easy target in all this, because there definitely are other people who should also be answering questions. And this is the whole thing around these Epstein files. The whole of America is trying to work out what's going on. It's getting President Trump a bit sort of in hot water from both sides of the political spectrum. But I can't see Andrew coming forward anytime soon, because he doesn't want to put his head above the parapet.
No,
he can't afford to. And
well, I don't think he's got a parapet anymore, because he's in a much smaller home.
Well, it might have two chimneys rather than 20.
Yeah, exactly. But it's interesting, the Met Police confirmed they have spoken to his former close protection officers. By the way, it's Mountbatten Windsor. I got it the wrong way around. I mean, who cares what he's called? Former Prince, over claims that he'd asked one of them to obtain personal information about Virginia Giuffre. Now, we know that he certainly claimed in an email that he had, written by then Prince Andrew, that he had asked his close protection officer to basically commit a crime. Now, the question is what is the form of those officers? Because those officers, by the way, would have joined him in the convicted paedophile financier Jeffrey Epstein's home in New York when he was there. They would have known about his relationships, known, what was going on. They knew whether or not he was in Pizza Express in Woking on the night that Virginia Giuffre claims at the age of 17 she was trafficked to have sex with Prince Andrew, and she denies. But I mean, they would know all this. So how much information are they willing to give, or are they required to give?
Well, at the moment, they don't seem to be coming forward. And this is the problem with the whole of Prince Andrew's testimony. His diary is closely managed. So if he wants to go off on a private visit, it has to be revealed. So all this should be in some form of diary appointments from way back when. Unless they've been thrown out, it will be very difficult.
Conveniently lost in a warehouse fire. I mean,
Well, could easily be the case, but this is the problem for Andrew Mountbatten -Windsor. Don't forget the hyphen. That's very important.
I feel very strongly about my hyphen, so there we are. But that's the question. I mean, there's lots of people who know, and they're not saying that. Presumably, you sign the Official Secrets Act, you're not allowed to say. One person who could say an awful lot is Sarah Ferguson, as was Duchess of York. I was still amazed to learn she still had the title until this year as his ex-wife. But by all accounts, she's being offered a six-figure sum from various US networks to do a tell-all. I mean, Oprah Winfrey would be the obvious, wouldn't it? I mean, she got Meghan and Harry in enough trouble. I mean, she does know where all the bodies are buried, doesn't she?
Yes, and the royal family have always tried to keep her on side. But how obviously she's lost her title. She's now homeless because she's not going to stay in Royal Lodge. So for her, this might be the easy way out. And this could be the one that causes the royal family or even more grief, because if she tells all, because she needs the money, then the royal family might find it very uncomfortable viewing or listening. I've
got her mobile number. She called me once. Hello, this is Sarah Ferguson. She's got a very, very deep voice. So after a show I did, I might give her a call and say, we can offer you a nice coffee and a croissant. But come and tell all on Talk, Sarah. That's the question. I'm sure you can help with briefing me. Rupert Bell, Talk's royal correspondent, thank you very much indeed. It's going to be fun and games. It always is when it comes to the Harry and the Meghans and the Andrews and the Sarahs. But there we are. So much more to talk about, more about benefits, more about what's going on in the budget, and more about beauty blocking trial as well. This is Talk.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Very good morning to you. It's coming up to 3 minutes past 11 o'clock. This is Talk, the home of common sense. Welcome back to the show. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer, and whether you're listening on DAB+ radio or your smart speaker, watching on YouTube or your connected device, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Don't forget, though, as of next Monday, which terrifyingly is the 1st of December, help, our Talk TV app is on the move. So all of your favourite shows or your podcasts will continue over at the Talk app, not Talk TV. We're just going to pretend the whole TV thing never happened. We're back where we are. So if you're watching or listening on the Talk TV app right now, you'll need to download the Talk app from the App Store or Google Play. Do it right now. Come, do it now. Do as you're told. Do it now, and then it's all there. And then you've got put Talk on your phone, and everything is going to be there. And you can just get it all from Monday, because that Talk TV app is not going to exist from Monday. Look, we've done this all before, moving from DAB to DAB+. You can cope with it. So someone will have to teach me how to do it, but I'm sure you can manage. Lots more coming up in this hour. I'm going to be talking about the budget and why on earth we're going to be seeing taxes going up on ordinary working people. I thought that was in the manifesto, that they weren't going to go up, and on businesses who employ all of us ordinary working people. The mansion tax, and extraordinarily, instead of trying to push through that £5 billion, which was a drop in the ocean in terms of the ballooning welfare bill earlier in the year, and failing on that, Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer, because who are we kidding? He signs off on this budget. They're going to put up spending on welfare, I kid you not, by 15 billion quid, paid for by you and me. And a load of that is going to be going on scrapping the two-child benefit cap, which blows my mind. We're also going to be talking about Shabana Mahmood, Home Secretary. Pretty much the entire news last week was about Shabana Mahmood. But she's been warned that her plans to have temporary asylum, so you have to reapply every 2.5 years, are unworkable and could cost more than £1 billion to taxpayers. The idea is that review all the time. So if your country is now safe, if you're an asylum seeker, you then have to be sent home. It's just not going to work. It's also been revealed that migrants housed in an army camp will get arts and crafts classes. The military camp in East Sussex, set to have 600 asylum seekers, has already advertised for a £32,000 a year activity coordinator. I kid you not, to organise wellbeing sessions and arts classes. You just can't make this up. Plus, taxpayers' money is being used once again to completely wasted really, to fund civil servants going to things like pride marches. Just a few grand. It's just a few grand, but it's just a few grand here and there in every sodding government, council and official and charity organisation that you and I are funding through our taxes. And it has got to stop. I'm going to talk about all of that. I'm going to talk about the BBC board executives being quizzed by MPs later this afternoon. Ukraine, you name it, all coming up. And joining me for all the chat, I'm delighted to say, is commentator Sam Armstrong. Morning to you.
Good morning.
I think, judging from the last hour, you may have had your Weetabix this morning, shredded wheat, whichever it is. Either way, he's had it. I'm asking you the question this morning about the budget, basically, unveiling 15 billion quid more welfare spending, including scrapping the two-child benefit cap, but raising taxes on working people and business. I want to know your reaction to that. Lots of you, though, want to get in touch about the puberty blocker trial. We're going to talk more about that. I mean, it's genuinely shocking. And we're going to be talking to James Esses, who's been an absolute hero on this issue and exposing an awful lot of what's been going on. And he is working with Kira Bell, that court case that really was the start of the end of the Tavistock clinic, because she was a detransitioner, so she couldn't possibly, as a child under 16, have been expected to consent to being given these hormones. They're going to try and do a legal challenge to stop what is, as far as we can tell, basically treating children as young as 10 as human guinea pigs for dangerous drugs. They're going to try and stop it. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on all the topics. Give us a call, 0344 499 1000. Text the word talk in your message to 87222. Get in touch with us on X at talkTV. Don't forget, the calls are charged the national rate altogether now. Text costs £1, standard network rate message. Sam never joins in. Very disappointing, but you don't want to do it. Do you do the hokey cokey? Do you join? Are you a joiner in and that sort of thing?
Well, I'm opposed to the hokey cokey on the basis that it appears to be Keir Starmer's approach to the European Union.
No, and indeed welfare policy, and indeed migrant policy. It's pretty much everything in, out. No, keep going. Sam, I want to start with the budget.
Oh, do we have to?
Yes, we have to, because we're going to be talking about this sodding thing all week.
It's
an
grey
absolute
Monday
disaster.
morning. It's heinous outside, and the only thing that could possibly lower my mood further is a discussion of Rachel from Accounts' ideas of how to run the UK
Listen, we talked
economy.
about this earlier. We're not allowed to criticise Rachel because Keir is very proud. He's got the first woman chancellor, and it's sexist to criticise her. It is true. Women in public life get more criticism than men do. It is true. Women on the radio get more criticism than men do because people don't like our hair. Why do you care about my hair?
Can I say something, though, on this topic, right? Is the UK less sexist or more sexist than it was in the 1980s? I think
less, 100%
everybody would agree it's less sexist. Yet, throughout the 1980s, this country was run by a strong female Prime Minister who basically turned the British economy around and never, despite receiving loads and loads and loads, tons of criticism, never, to the best of my knowledge, turned around and said, you know what, it's really unfair, all this criticism I'm getting, Mrs Thatcher, because and it's all because I'm a woman. And yet we're to accept the fact that Rachel from Accounts, who lied about her CVs to all intents and purposes...
And again, she's called Rachel from Accounts not because she's a woman, it's because she lied about the job she's done.
And the job she's doing now is horrendous. The UK economy, every single warning light is flashing red, and yet we're not allowed to point that out
because that's sexist.
Well,
Julian Jessup, the economist we spoke to earlier, and he said if you could actually sign a budget that could be worse, it'd be impossible to even do that.
A terrible sexist.
I've got some even better news. So look outside. I mean, I don't know how miserable... We did have sunshine, I think, about an hour ago, but
and then
not
we started
anymore.
talking about the budget.
We started talking about the budget, and look what's happened. Rachel's in charge of that. The Office of Budget Responsibility is... is going to downgrade its growth forecast for the economy for every year of the rest of this Parliament when the Chancellor announces our budget. So the Budget Watchdog had forecast in the spring there'd be a 1% growth this year. Oh, 1% growth, followed by 1.9% next year, 1.8%, 1.7%, maybe say nothing. But it's going to be lower than that. And that's probably because they're factoring in what she's going to do. And we know that their steely focus on growth involves mostly growing the tax take and growing welfare. And the reality is there is no economy which taxes to that extent and doesn't do it. We're not spending our tax money on rebuilding our railways, building roads, building houses for people, doing stuff, making sure we've got plentiful, reliable, cheap energy so businesses can thrive and not have to move abroad. No, we're going to just hand it out to people who are sitting on their backsides right now. Hi, if you're watching or listening, not going out to work because either they've got 5 kids I can't afford, or they're feeling a bit anxious on a Monday morning. I'm sorry, this has got to stop.
Look, Rachel has never run a business. She just hasn't. But anybody that has run a business will tell you the following. It's all about people. Personnel is the most important thing that matters. And this country is no different. And we are deciding, as a country, to make a massive switch in the type of people. We are choosing to force out all of the billionaires. Lakshmi Mittal with his 35 billion, he's gone. He's in Dubai now. That's another one. We've lost some others. We're going to lose some more still. These are people that put in many, many, many thousands times more into the system than they take. So they're gone with all of their money. Joining them are talented young people that are going off to Dubai, to Portugal, to Italy,
$250,000
to the United States, and with them some millionaires too. In their place, we are welcoming in hundreds of thousands of people who have nothing in common other than being scumbags who break the law to steal the place of people that did deserve
no, one second. No, that's tens of thousands of illegal migrants. The people
added up over the years.
No, but the people who are coming, the hundreds of thousands who are coming on legal visas are not scumbags. They're people who want to come. Well,
they are.
Many of them are coming here to work. Many of them are dependents. Many of them. Most, again, the stats are really clear. Even the Home Secretary pointed out 800,000 200,000 of those who are coming in are actually on low wages, low skill work. They're coming in. They are. Sure. We haven't got anywhere, no houses for them, no schools for them, no parking places for them, no space on the train or the bus for them. But we're just going to bring in a load of people with skills which, by the way, our country already has. We've got plenty of low-skilled, low-wage labour available. We're just busy paying them to sit on their backsides.
What? Every year we bring in about over 100,000 between visa overstayers, people that get into the country legally and then choose to sort of squat here, or those that have broken into the country. We then have, as you say, an epidemic of low-skilled of workers who immediately bring in their family, and you then have a bunch of students that are doing courses that can't possibly benefit anyone.
Yeah, English language courses.
And the result is that hundreds of thousands of Brits are leaving the country. These are good people with good skills, and hundreds of thousands of people of the objectively not the sort of people you would choose are coming into this country. And I, by the way, would say, actually, if you were going to design an immigration system, if you were going to design a country that could kind of work, make it really, really easy for Americans with degrees, Canadians with degrees, Australians with degrees, New Zealanders with degrees to come into the country. But we can't do that.
No, but I know there'll be people right now listening to that and go, well, that's racist. And you just don't want people of colour, you want white people.
Julia,
I mean, you didn't specify they had to be white Americans or Canadians, I'd like to point out. But that's what people will say, that people who have a preference for people... That said, we were all called racist when we voted for Brexit because we didn't want, apparently, a load of white Europeans coming over. I could never keep up with why we're racist this week. But the reality is, what we're talking about is people... The stats are very clear in terms of even like Western Europeans and other of the English language world. People coming here, obviously great English skills, highly educated, more likely to contribute, more likely to pay more tax, less likely to commit crime. Whereas the further away you go, and the poorer the country people come from, and the more different the culture, crucial, the higher the rates of all the bad things. Doesn't mean everyone is. Doesn't mean everyone's a problem. There'll be good people who are coming here trying to make a life for their family. But the point is, our job of our immigration system should not be to improve the lot of people from other countries. It's to improve the lot of people in this country.
And the way you do that is by building an immigration system that works as the grammar school of the world. You say, who are the brightest and the best?
Come
who can
here.
bring money?
We
want a little bit of your taxes to go into funding the NHS. Instead, we're operating like the sink comp. We're the place that if you can't get into anywhere else,
we'll have
slap over to Britain.
So true.
They will hand out money to you, hand over fist, and they'll never ask for anything back. And is it any wonder that we then get to a budget and public service, the highest rate of taxes on the top 1% in Europe? Who is it? It's the UK. Yeah. So when you next hear Zach Polanski with his strange theories
Green
and what hypnotherapy can do,
worked on me.
When you next hear him say that we need to take more from the rich, ask him compared to whom? We're already taking more from
this whole idea that the rich need to pay their fair share. I mean, you could argue, yeah, look, someone's got $1 billion. Of course, you're not going to spend $1 billion. You're not spending all of your money on energy or on feeding your kids. I get that. Of course, they've got to spend money. But again, this all comes from this sort of politics of envy and this idea. I know a lot of people who've earned a lot of money, and I look at the hours those people have done. Some of the people I know who are millionaires, okay, they're people who come from ordinary families, and they worked stupid hours. I mean, routinely 100 hours. Now, there'll be people who are on very low incomes who are doing that, and people who are trying to set up businesses, trying to work. But I'm talking about these people, they're kind of utterly brilliant. Yeah. They're just brilliant. And they are paying a shed load of tax. I mean, they are paying, literally millions in tax every year on their incomes, on their bonuses or whatever. They barely see their families. They're working every hour God sends. Saturday night, they're on the phone for 3 hours to Tokyo and to, and to New York. I mean, it's a different life choice. It's not one for me, but people who do it, but we are already benefiting from them. They're already paying enough tax. And I have a real issue, the idea that people should have to pay more than 50% of their income in tax. I just think that's wrong. I just think that sends out a horrible message that people aren't going to like. But here's the thing. It's the fact that ordinary working people, who were supposed to be the people that Labour said in their manifesto last year, we would not be taxing more. They're not going to put up the rates of income tax or the rates of national insurance. They're not going to put the rates of VAT as they promised they wouldn't do, but they are going to put more people who are earning below the tax threshold of 12.5 grand. They're going to be dragged by what's called fiscal drag. The threshold is not going to increase, but prices have gone up and therefore benefits will go up and wages will go up. And part of that extra 15 billion quid being spent on welfare is inflation proofing benefits. I don't personally have an issue with that. I think people... I have an issue with a number of people claiming benefits. People are needing benefits. They need to be able to feed their families and heat their homes. But people who are on the 20% tax bracket, the vast majority of people in this country, they are going to get a pay rise to cover for inflation. And then they're going to be put into the top bit. They're going to be put into the 40% bracket. So they go, oh, great, I've got a pay rise. No, an extra 20% of that... It's gone off to the Treasury. And people are going to be poorer. They're not going to be better off. They're going to get a pay rise and not feel or be better off. And then you've got the 45p, which again was supposed to be for like the super rich. Well, it's not the super rich anymore. It's head teachers, for goodness sake. And we are just getting to a massive... Again, businesses are... I mean, they are crying out. They're already stopping investing. They don't know what the next tax is going to be on workers, on jobs, national insurance threshold and the rise in that. And then we've got the other big issue, and Kemi Badenoch, the Tory leader, is bringing this up. We know in her speech at the CBI today, the Confederation of British Industry in Westminster, meeting their annual conference, about employers' rights and these new rights coming in, affecting things like zero-hours contracts and temp jobs. And the reality is that a lot of people want zero-hours contracts. If you're a student, and my daughter before university managed to get a job in a nightclub working, only for 2 weeks. You sign away all your rights. I mean, that's it. But wouldn't have had that work otherwise, because otherwise she'd have had rights on day one, and then they'd have to carry on employing her. When she was in a different city, unable to work. But also, crucially, the Christmas job. I mean, that whole sort of hiring people. I did loads of waitressing where, you were hired at the beginning of December. You did a month when it was really busy. And then I left. I went back to uni. But, I was happy. I got the work when I needed it. They were happy. They got the extra staff. No duty of care to me after that point, which I didn't want. That's going to be, I mean, as far as we can work out, illegal. Well,
actually, I tell you what's actually going to happen is that millions of more people are going to get moved into the self-employed sector to have even fewer rights.
But pay the same tax. The IR35, you pay the same sodding tax, but you don't get sick pay or holiday pay.
As usual, the socialists that run the Labour Party have no idea how the real world works. Don't. But I am absolutely terrified about the future of this country's economy, because we have round the corner coming AI, which is going to decimate the services sector.
It's going to destroy it. Decimate is 1 in 10. Incorrect use of the word decimate.
Forgive me.
It's a personal bugbear.
Forgive me. It is going to destroy the services economy. If you sit there and your job is to be good on emails all day, as Maurice Glassman says, AI is coming for your job. And if you're a recent graduate that got absolutely laden with debt to go to a university to get a humanities degree, and now you work in some kind of junior level or even mid-level job working, maybe you work in accounts, maybe you respond to emails and different things, or you're in marketing or the rest of it.
Your job's gone.
AI is going to absolutely devastate it. And
the lanyard class.
The lanyard class are going to get exactly what they frankly...
We're still going to need builders.
Always deserve.
Still going to need hairdressers.
And yet we are totemically, absolutely, extraordinarily underskilled there. And the other thing we're going to need is really smart computer guys that are going to be the people that earn the mega money. Frankly, it is often the people that are going to get really, really wealthy are going to be kind of quite like slightly autistic men that are really good with computers.
The people that people mocked at school, those people are going to be the billionaires.
But the one thing the country really needs to do well in the AI revolution is not like a magic, it's not mysterious, it relies on what was done by people is now going to be done by electricity and energy. And in America, electricity is 4 times cheaper than it is in the UK.
So where are you going to do it? You're going to do it in America.
I've just got back from the USA. They're building everywhere. Their economy is booming, while ours is sitting in stagnant water.
Meanwhile, our government thinks it's a really good idea that we should be doing some experiments on healthy children. I've got to talk about the Puberty Block because we've got so many calls on the board about this. Wes Streeting, the Health Secretary, who we did think was the grown-up in the room, he wrote a series of posts on social media over the weekend saying about children with gender incongruence. I mean, just nonsense.
Just read about it, Julia.
Kids who are very confused, kids who've been abused, neglected, kids in care, a lot of gay children, particularly girls who are uncomfortable about being gay, largely because their families have got an issue with it, and others, and children with depression, a lot of kids with autism, and other issues, are basically looking at YouTube videos and for some reason thinking that they may be born in the wrong body. And then we get a whole load of teachers and right-on woke people at Tavistock Clinic and elsewhere saying, yes, you are born in the wrong body. We should stop you growing into the boy or the healthy man or the healthy woman you could be. And they're giving them drugs. That's what they've been doing. Well, the Tavistock Clinic got closed down because those drugs were so bad. They didn't say they were potentially bad. They were very, very, very clear. There was an unacceptable safety risk. That's what the Health Secretary said in response to the Hilary Cass report for puberty blockers. So what's the solution? Well, we're going to have a trial involving 216 children as young as 10 primary school age children who are going to be put in a trial to be given puberty blockers or not. Of course, it's not a blind trial because you know perfectly well whether you are going through puberty or not. They'll be able to tell very easily. I think it'd be pretty sodding obvious to the kids as well. And then they're going to see how it goes over a few years, despite the fact, of course, a 10-year-old child can't or even a 16-year-old child can't possibly consent to medical treatment that will damage their bones, damage their brain, and will lead them onto a path, because 98% of children who go on puberty blockers move onto a path of doing sex hormone treatment, which makes them infertile and sexually non-functional. No 10-year-old child can possibly consent to that. This is the stuff that Joseph Mengele, the German horrific doctor who experimented on children, on adults, on pregnant women, cutting babies out of live women, stuff that they did in the concentration camps on Jewish people and the disabled because they could, yeah? This is the stuff that Joseph Mengele would do. Wes Streeting and all the people taking part in this trial, you are behaving no better than a Nazi doctor experimenting on people in concentration camps. Children cannot consent to this. You do not give damaging, by your own assessment, Wes Streeting, your own assessment, unsafe drugs. You cannot give unsafe drugs to physically healthy children to see whether they work or not in changing their bodies, when it is a simple matter of fact that there are two biological sexes and no one is born in the wrong body. This is genuinely obscene. It should be illegal. I believe it is criminal and everyone involved should be prosecuted. We're going to talk to James Esses a bit later. He's working with Kira Bell, who's a detransitioner. She, that big case basically helped to lead to the downfall of the Tavistock Clinic. And they're looking at basically legal action along with many others to try and stop this from happening. Sam Armstrong, just a brief word on that, because is it the sort of, I mean, I know, you work with the Free Speech Union. It's not the sort of thing they'd get involved in, I don't know, but very supportive, I would have thought.
We should be clear about what these drugs are. These are the same drugs that are used in the chemical castration of paedophiles around the world. Now, our government says it won't do that. It won't do that. We won't chemically castrate paedophiles for reasons that elude me completely. But it is prepared to hand chemical castration drugs to children as young as the age of 10 who are confused about they are, often because of terrible life circumstances. This is governmental national child abuse.
Full stop. End of. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, on the welfare benefits. Ukraine we're going to be talking about after midday as well, the so-called peace plan that is a surrender plan. Give us a call, 0344 499 1000. That is the number to get in touch on. Lots of texts coming in about benefits. Do get in touch about anything we're talking about. I know a lot of you want to talk about the puberty blockers. To get your calls up next, this is Talk.
In terms of your question around taxes, there are no additional tax rises needed beyond the ones that I've set out.
Don't need to increase taxes. I'm not coming back with more borrowing or more taxes.
I will not increase your national insurance. I will not increase your VAT, and I will not increase your income tax.
We don't need to come back for more. We've done that now. We've wiped the slate clean.
The economic circumstances have declined, deteriorated since a year ago. We are having to look at taxes and spending.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Morning, welcome back to the show. 11:29 is the time. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. This is Talk. Let's get straight to your calls. 0344 499 1000 is the number to have your say. Lots of calls coming in on welfare expense, especially coming up to the budget, and puberty blockers as well. Take a call on both. Donald is in Eastbourne. Hello, Donald. What do you want to say?
Good morning, Julia.
Good morning.
I just got a practical experience with trying to find someone a job with 17 children. This is going back to the 1970s.
Sorry, someone had 17 children? Presumably, yeah. This is a man, I'm guessing.
This is a man and his poor wife. She must have been in a terrible state. But anyway, this is in Scotland and in the 1970s. And I actually got him through once he had signed on and said, look, I've got these jobs I'd like you to have a look at. And he said, and his words were, I can remember quite distinctly because I was quite young at the time, he said, look, son, he said, there is no job that you can offer me that can compete with the benefits that I'm receiving.
There you go. There you go.
And the thing is, that stuck with me. I'm 71 years of age now. I'm still working 4 days a week. I train district nurses. I've been a long time in the healthcare industry. I used to work in the NHS, but just something very quickly about the puberty blockers, if I can. From a pharmaceutical days, I would actually suggest that you actually take a very close look at the only approved indication for the drugs that Lupron is for precocious puberty.
Yes.
Now, if somebody starts their puberty at 7, you suspend it to about 10 or 11.
Yeah.
And the thing is, if you look at the serious side effects, which are well listed, decreased bone density for girls, that's a disaster anyway. You need to actually look at it's already there. So for anybody to turn around and say
we need a trial,
it's a trial, is complete and utter madness. But the thing is, also from the pharmaceutical side of things, look at who benefits.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, such a good call. Thank you so much, Donald. Really appreciate that. Miranda is on the line in Cumbria. Miranda, you also want to talk about the puberty blockers?
Yes, it was about the who was going to sign the consent form.
Yeah.
And it will have to be the parents because it has to be an informed consent.
Well, no, a lot of these kids are in care, and they're going to include children in care. I mean, insanely in this. So, you know, presumably. Who knows who signs it off?
Exactly, but the thing is that it really should be the doctors who are experimenting on these children, but they won't do that because they don't want to be made liable in future for somebody to come back and sue them. But essentially, they're manipulating these children. Who's actually discussing this? And it's just criminal. And for a 10-year-old, how can they don't even know what they want for dinner?
I know. They think, and honestly, they think they're Spider-Man. They think, you know, I'm going to be a ballet dancer. And again, the stats are so clear on these children who have been treated with Tavistock. I feel very strong about Tavistock because it is, you know, a 10-minute walk, you know, from my home. And you know, I know people who work there, you know, and it's genuinely just sort of, you know, these kids, they're autistic, they're gay, they've got depression, they've got eating disorders, they've been abused, they've got a much higher number of percentage of parents who on the child sex offender register. What a surprise! You know, what a surprise that children who've been sexually abused may want to change their bodies. You know,
if we can see that, why has West Streeting said yes? Go ahead. Is it just purely for votes?
I can think of no good. It's not for the kids, is it?
No, it's not. It's disgusting. It's just insulting to the general public. It's insulting to everybody. And you know it's just for votes. And he really just doesn't give a hoot. I mean, as a child, I used to run, and I used to run with the lads. They were very funny. They had a great sense of humour. But never once was I confused about my sexuality. No. Never once.
And I've met so many women, particularly lesbians, since a lot of girls are going through this now, and they just say, I know that I would have basically been given these cross hormones, and I'd have been, I'd have had my breasts lopped off and be scarred and infertile for the rest of my life because, but now, I was a confused kid who's grown up to be a very happy lesbian woman. I mean, it's terrifying. Oh, Amanda, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, both you and Donald, just the voices of sanity. Where's Streety? You're going to get some messages from me later in private, but you're going to get some messages. You're going to have to justify yourself, mate. Do give us a call to have your say. 0344 499 1000. 11:34 is the time. Up next, going to talk to the wonderful Conservative peer, Lord McKinley. And then we're also going to be talking later in the show to Andrew Fox, a big friend of the show, about what on earth is going on with this so-called peace deal for Ukraine. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, welcome back to the show. 11:37 is the time. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. Let's go straight to my next guest, Conservative peer, Craig McKinley, as was MP, but now Lord McKinley. Very good morning to you, Craig.
Great to be on, Julia.
Thank you for joining us. So, looking forward to the budget then?
Oh, very much so. I'll be up there in the Peers Gallery. I won't be able to have tomatoes in hand. I think they'll even take them away from us Lords going to the Peers Gallery. But I'll be watching very intently, playing the bingo, I think, really have my bingo card, see which ones that we've had floating over the last few months actually come to pass. But, I mean, the reality is we've had 2 months, 3 months of this, fly this kite, fly that kite, will this one work?
Yeah.
What it's done, of course, is it stopped all business investment, it stopped the property market, it stopped all of us doing practically anything because we don't know what's around the corner. It's the worst budget sort of run-up that I think I've ever seen.
And we're old enough and ugly enough to remember when chancellors had to resign if anything came out about the budget, but they've flown kites. And amazing. And then they dropped this idea, oh, it's not going to be an income tax rise, it's this, it's that. I mean, and we had it sort of pretty much confirmed now. We're going to see that scrapping of the two-child benefit cap. But I mean, that's been around for ages, isn't it? But bad news, though, for the Chancellor, because the OBR, the Office of Budget Responsibility, we're told now, is going to downgrade UK growth for every year of this Parliament. And given this was the #1 economic plan of this government, as they put in their manifesto, this steely focus on growth, we ain't got any growth. I mean, I think 0.1%. I mean, it's just nothing. And even their best case scenario at the moment, the next couple of years, there might be almost 2% in 1 year. This economy is in the doldrums.
Well, completely in the doldrums. I mean, I have to say, and I don't want to talk this country down, far from it. I live in this country. I love it, just as I'm sure most of your listeners do. But you have to sort of be in the realms of reality. If you were an international potential entrepreneur, where would you be casting your eye to make business investments? And I'm very sorry to say, in the current environment of the UK, it would not be the UK. Yeah. It would be virtually anywhere else that actually welcomes business, doesn't tax it to death, doesn't wrap it in so much red tape that it completely strangles. I mean, I have to give Rachel Reeves some very obvious advice. You cannot tax your way to growth.
But they do think they can do that. And we see this on the left, well, the whole of the Labour Party, but the left of the Labour Party especially. We've got the Greens, Zach Polanski, their leader. We've got the Lib Dems. Their whole shtick is always tax the rich, tax the wealthy, and then do more handouts. It's free, free childcare, free food at school, free, what was it? One of the MPs yesterday was talking about, we should have, free public transport. Nothing. We don't even have a free NHS. We pay for it. We just pay for it through our taxes. But they just want to tax those people over there. And then we all get a load of free stuff. That's their whole idea of how the whole economy works.
Whatever this budget holds, and I can guarantee it's going to be bad, what it will mean is lots more free stuff. There's talk about, as you say, the two-child benefit cap. They weren't able to wind back anything to do with benefits at all.
Benefits, yeah.
Ago. So what this will mean is that you and I, Julia, and your many millions of listeners who are at work, will be paying more tax to finance people who are not prepared to go to work. And we're allowing a new lifestyle of staying at home, doing very little, to be better paid.
Well, that was happening on a grand scale in many previous decades as well. But one thing, that's what always got massive time for Ian Duncan-Smith when he was compared to Secretary. He did massively get that down before lockdown. And the Tories did fail after it ballooned during lockdown. Let's face it, it would have been just as bad, if not worse, under Labour. Let's not kid ourselves. But the abject failure to get to grips with that and get everyone off the payroll quickly, in 2022, they did fail. I mean, Labour of making things worse, but the Tories did their fair bit to make this bad during the aftermath of the COVID lockdowns.
To my party's credit, before lockdown, before COVID, we were doing okay in making sure there weren't so many workless families, so that the essence of work was something worth going for. But COVID destroyed everything. We were particularly bad in this country. And as you know, Julia, I voted against each and every one of these COVID measures. Yeah. But we were worse than any other country at coming out the other side. We had productivity in the public sector collapsed and has never recovered. We had this assessment of your PIP assessment over the phone continued. Because it seemed a struggle to get a lot of our civil service back to work. Yeah. So we have not recovered from the whole COVID era, worse than any other country in the world. But let me give you this as a very worrying story. You've got Lakshmi Mittal has decided, 7th wealthiest guy in the country, has decided to go elsewhere, to take his investments, his wealth and everything else. And that is on the back of the non-dom rules and also the increasing tax bill. So I can but guess that Mr. Mittal did not take out too much out of the economy in terms
I'm going on a limb. going out on a limb, he wasn't on universal credit.
Let me say, I don't suppose he was using the local library too much or using the NHS. So he was taking next to nothing out. But as the 7th wealthiest guy in the country, he was putting an awful lot of tax in, probably to the tune of at least tens, if not hundreds of millions of pounds. That now disappears completely.
Yeah.
So you and I have to make up the difference because the spending will not reduce. So many on the left, and Greens are now really occupying the extreme left, really. They somehow rejoice when wealthy people leave.
Yeah.
I actually cry when wealthy people leave
because they're paying more than their fair share already. But this is it.
We've already got the figures. The top 1% of wealthy people in this country pay 33% of the income tax.
Yeah, I mean,
so if you're looking
and
at
the top 10% pay 60%.
Exactly. So, that old chestnut of those who've got the broader shoulders must bear the cost, they're already doing so. They're doing so massively. And that happened under a Conservative government. But we had a balance. It sort of worked. You can argue about the tax take here and there.
Yeah.
But it's a very careful balance. You upset the balance, as Art Laffer said very, very carefully, very clearly, and he's saying it a lot of late, again, in this country, you get that balance wrong, you end up with less.
And this is the same also for the Employment Rights Bill. I know Kemi Badenoch, the Tory leader, speaking at the Confederation of British Industry Conference, in fact, it's just finished, I think, in the last few moments. And one of the things she's been saying is about, this Employer Rights Bill. Yes, of course we want people to be protected, and there are some things that are wrong with some zero-hours contracts and some employers that are not doing the right thing. But that if you give too many rights, like rights from day one, and you don't allow zero-hours contracts, actually employers don't employ anyone at all. And she's even talking about those Christmas jobs that many of us had as some of our first jobs not existing because an employer's going, well, hold on a minute, they get rights to have a full salary and a full 40-hour week, in January, but I haven't got any work for them in January. I've only got work for them in December when the restaurant or the shop or whatever it is busy. This is the thing. There is a real issue with pretty much nobody, it would appear, at the top echelons of Labour having ever, not just having run a business. I've never run a business, but never even having worked in the private sector.
Yes, well, most of them have obviously worked in unions, they've worked in charity, they've made their way after university working for an MP or Labour Central Office, and so they're pretty much untouched by the real world. I can assure you, I'm in practice chartered accountant still, we've got 30 employees, and many times over the past, we've taken a flyer on somebody new. We're willing to give them a go.
Yeah.
But now, if this legislation holds, where people get rights from day one, you don't take a flyer, you don't take a risk that you're going to get sued. And I'm afraid that extends also to the new Renters' Rights Act that came in a couple of weeks ago. If you're a landlord, and I'll put my hands up, I'm a private landlord, I'm one of those evil ones. Mm-hmm. But I was willing to take a flyer on somebody in the past, but now with the difficulties of getting rid of people, anybody who's got a slightly checkered history in terms of a credit rating and all the rest of it, they have got no chance because no landlord will touch them.
Well, exactly, and that's the thing, and it's the same with business as well. Can I ask you? I just want to ask you about something that the Conservative Party chairman has done yesterday. And we've had Kevin Hollinrake's been on the show many times. Really, rather like him. He's kind of no nonsense. He gives as good as he gets. But for some reason, he thought it was a good idea yesterday to put out a tweet, basically sharing an image of the Golden Party badge. Now, this was a badge that was awarded to the first 100,000 people who joined Adolf Hitler's Nazis in the 30s, okay? And he did delete the image, but then he shared a link to the Wikipedia page about the badge featuring this, basically saying that the Black and Gold Reform Party badge, which they are going to be handing out, was very similar because it was black and gold. It's a collector's edition party football shirt, and it's got this badge on it. And basically he's sort of saying, this is a comparison. He's done the eyes looking left emoji, and a sort of, look, reform's the same as the Nazis. I have to say, look, I've got a lot of time for this MP, but what on earth is a Conservative Party chairman thinking about comparing a party that's, by the way, twice the number of supports as your party currently in the polls, putting out a tweet comparing them to the Nazis?
Well, I'll give, I don't know, I might see Kevin later on today and I will ask.
Well, give him a slapped hand from me.
As you say, he is one of the good ones. He has run a business. He's very knowledgeable. He's one of those that brings experience to politics, which I think we are sorely lacking in at times. I don't know what he was thinking of, but I will give advice both to the echelons of Reform and the higher echelons of the Conservative Party. There is an enemy out there, and it is not either of us with each other, because our Venn diagram of how we'd like to see Britain pretty much overlaps on very, very, very many things. I'm not quite sure where Reform quite stand on the economy, but no doubt we'll find out in due course. But the real enemy to this country are all the things we've been discussing thus far. They are the socialist left, in either the form of the Labour Party, the Greens, or any other new people coming into the left field, of which there seems to be many.
Yeah.
And I would give them advice. We are and should be friends, because the real enemy sits to the left of us. And I think we're
very interesting.
And work together where we can to make sure this country is the best it can be, and the best it can be is with a right of centre government. And if we have to work together closely as friends to achieve that, then that's great with me. But the enemy is elsewhere.
Conservative peer Lord McKinley, very interesting to hear that. Thank you very much indeed. Sam Armstrong, you perked up listening to that. Look, he's saying we're going to have to work together, guys. We're not the enemy. Basically dismissing Reform as Nazis. I mean, it was cheap and tacky, and I mean, the idea that anything that looks anything like, if you use the same colours and it's a badge, then you must be like the Nazis. That is cheap and tacky and stupid, isn't it?
I thought it was shabby. And I thought it was silly, because if you're the Conservative Party, remember the Conservative Party is the chairman of my party, if you're the Conservative Party, the way you get more than the 14 seats that it's reported the Conservative Party
that is the latest. If there was an election today, basically that's what your party would end up getting.
Your argument about why people should vote for you and not Reform is that Reform are great and they say everything you want, but they haven't got the team, they're not serious enough to deliver it. Well, what Kevin Hollinrake did was put out a tweet that was very redolent to me of the kind of abuse that you would get on the playground as an 8-year-old.
Yeah.
It was puerile, it was childish, it was beneath him and his office. And I think if you're a Reform voter who may have some concerns about whether Nigel can deliver everything he says he's going to do, and you're thinking, well, could I go back to the
the grown-ups at the Tories?
Could I go back to the Conservative Party?
Yeah.
That tweet is like an Exocet missile designed to stop you doing that. It was the biggest backfire I've ever seen.
But especially as the Tories get that sort of stuff from Labour and Lib Dems, and you're just giving into it. And what do you make? I mean, the former Reform leader in Wales, Nathan Gill, he was jailed for 10 years last week for accepting basically pro-Russian bribery to do. I mean, absolute a traitor to this country, 100%. Yeah. What do you make of the the likes of Zia Youssef and Nigel Farage saying, look, nothing to do with us, Govies, long time ago. I mean, look, you can't taint everybody. I mean, we've got enough scandals in Labour, enough scandals in the Tories, enough scandals in the Lib Dems. I mean, but I mean, there is an element where it's very damaging.
The reality is, there's a percentage of all human beings that are wrong-uns, and
a lot of them go into politics.
And a lot of them are drawn to politics in particular. The problem Reform have got with this, I don't think it's their fault generally, but the problem Reform have got is they have got an issue where their overall policy on Russia has, over the past few years, been too positive.
Well,
and then when you
I've taken Nigel Farage and Richard Tice to task over
when you get a wrong-un like this, it rather does suggest the message that maybe you're not all wrong-uns, but the wrong-uns are.
I think one can make comments about Vladimir Putin and his political abilities, which Nigel has made quite rightly, and one can make comments about, and one can have a wrong with a different viewpoint on Ukraine without being a traitor to your country. I mean, he got 10 years. That's quite telling, isn't it? Anyway, we've got to take a break. 11:52 is the time. Up next, going to be talking about the latest woke Whitehall waste as we approach the budget with the Taxpayers Alliance. This is Talk.
Now, this is a story, though, because children as young as 10 are going to be given puberty blockers in an NHS trial. I think it's 250 boys and girls who say they're gender dysphoric are going to be tried out with these sort of puberty-blocking injections. What are they doing? That's child abuse. You can't use little kids as some sort of guinea pigs in these weird experiments to see if puberty blockers are harmful in the long run with some sort of mad pseudoscience where a kid as young as 10 going, oh, I think I'm a boy. When I was 10 years old, I probably thought I was a boy at one stage.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Morning, welcome back to the show. 11:55 is the time. Let's talk about woke Whitehall waste. I mean, we could do the entire show on that every single day, could we not? But what's the latest with William Yarwood? He's a media campaign manager at Taxpayers Alliance, who keep a very close eye on these things. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Julia.
Thank you for joining us. This time, what's the money being spent on?
Well, we're getting more pride marches. That's right.
Yay! That's what we need. More. You know what? People are always calling into the show, going, you know what? We don't get enough of pride marches.
Yeah, and also the biggest issue is actually it's not receiving enough taxpayer funding. I'm sure some of your callers will complain about that in great length. But yeah, Manchester Pride's got a new amount of money. Pride Cymru got an extra £900 of public money as well, and Belfast Pride also got an extra £750, which
of
is
our money. Sorry, of our money.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, of taxpayers' money. The viewers listening at home.
Hold on a minute. Hold on. This is a bit I don't get. I mean, some of this is actually being money paid, like the Cabinet Office paying over $3,000 to 4 different organisers. They call them LGBTQ plus events. I never know what the plus is or what the Q is for. But so that government employees can join in the official parades. Sorry. Do these parades charge people, and why are they doing it? Why are government employees paid for by you and me, and why are they doing it in their own time? I mean, in our time.
Well, because this type of ideology is deeply embedded inside of our public sector, Julia, as I'm sure you know. I mean, last year, Whitehall spent around £27 million on EDI schemes, projects, offices, the works, and there's about 380 odd diversity offices inside of Whitehall altogether.
I'm sorry, don't. I'm just...
And they have, Julia, get this, an average salary of £53,000.
Of course they do. They earn more than nurses, but you know what? They're making the world a more equitable, inclusive place. Of course they aren't. They're just busy trying to sack people who say, actually, men can't become women. But this is the thing. We keep being told that the Tories got rid of a load of this, and they didn't. Labour are fully on board with all this, but they tell us we haven't got any money, we'll have to put taxes up. But this is exactly the sort of stuff that should be the first on the list to buy, not necessary, buy, not necessary. This is the sort of stuff we'd want Elon Musk to come in and deal with.
Yeah, quite. But the issue is I don't think anybody has the courage or the energy to actually do this in government or indeed in the past government. I know you have Tom Slater on the show quite a lot, and I actually read an article for Spike last week called Why DEI Won't Die, because there's been lots of celebrations from people recently about woke being dead in the private sector.
Yeah, people writing books about it, not knowing what they're talking about.
Exactly, and my argument was like, well, I work at the TPA, I know a little bit about how all this is funded, and actually the work, as you would call it, is doing very nicely inside of the public sector, in our bureaucracies, in local government, in the NHS. I mean, you want to talk about diversity spending. The NHS spent about £40 million on diversity officers and earmarked about 1.8 million quid for, events like International Pronouns Day and Embracing Asexuality Day.
I can't. I've got to do another hour, and I'm going to be crying. I'm going to tear out what little hair I've got left. But this is, but we can't afford to pay a new radiographer so we can get people treated quicker for cancer. I mean, that's where we are, isn't it? Every single penny that is spent on this nonsense is a penny that could be spent on making our country better, saving lives, teaching children, whatever. It's all money that could be spent better.
Yeah, and it sort of digs into something a bit deeper. It feels like sort of the social contract between taxpayers and the state is completely broken.
Yeah.
If you play by the rules, you pay your taxes. You don't scrounge off the welfare state, so on and so forth. You expect public services decent in return.
Yeah.
But where do you see your money going? It goes on work projects,
and
foreign
pride,
aid, legal mining, hotels,
and more trans pride flags. Oh, William, you've upset me so much. William Yarwood from the Taxpayers Alliance. Thank you very much. Keep up the good work. So much more to talk about, including going to talk to Andrew Fox up next about Ukraine. What is this peace plan, and why does anyone think it's anything other than a surrender? This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Afternoon, welcome to the show. I really much appreciate you joining me. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. This is Talk with the home of common sense. Lot of common sense being spoken on this show today. And whether you're listening on DAB+ radio or on your smart speaker, watching on YouTube, your Connect device, thank you so much for watching us. Don't forget, though, I just want to keep reminding you of this, that we are changing our app. It's changing from the talkTV app to the Talk app, and it's happening next Monday, which terrifyingly is the 1st of December. This year's basically over, guys. But all of your favourite shows, all the podcasts, they're going to be moving on Monday from the Talk TV app. We're just going to pretend it never happened. Going back to what we do best here at Talk, we're going to go to the Talk app, and that's where everything is going to be. So download it now. Do as you're told. Download it now. Send me a message on social media to tell me you've done it, and then you'll be able to listen and watch them all as per usual. Everything else completely the same as of Monday. Now, also you can go to my YouTube page, The Julia Hartley-Brewer Show. Hit subscribe. You never have to miss a thing. There's all the housekeeping done. The exits are here and here, etc., etc. But we are going to be talking more about the budget. We're also going to be talking about Ukraine and this so-called peace deal. There's a 28-point peace plan, which is nothing but waving the white flag to Vladimir Putin. We're going to talk about that up next with Andrew Fox. We're also going to be talking about the latest free speech issues and, of course, that puberty blocker trial, which for no good reason whatsoever Wes Streeting, the Health Secretary, is going to allow under the NHS where more than 200 children, some as young as 10, are going to be given drugs which we know to be unsafe. even though they've got perfectly healthy bodies, to prevent them from going through puberty and putting them on track to a life of utter misery. Most of these children will be children who are autistic or simply gay or have depression or an eating disorder, abusive parents, in care, you name it. Those are the stats that the children who got treated at Tavistock all those years had. But for some reason, we think it's a really good idea to do another little experiment on these little human guinea pigs of 10-year-old confused, mixed up children who've been told the lie that they were born in the wrong body and that there's any such thing as someone who is trans. There isn't, you aren't, stop it. That's all coming up. You want to have your say, give us a call. 0344 499 1000. Text the word talk in your message to 87222. Get in touch with us on X at talkTV. Calls are charged at the national rate. Text costs £1, standard network rate message. Sam Armstrong is still with me just before we go to our next guest, commentator Sam Armstrong. And I have to say, I'm both heartened and worried by the number of calls we've had today about the puberty blocker issue. And it's that thing. People are concerned about their taxes. They are concerned about the state of the economy. Do you know what people really care about? Kids. Yeah. They care about their own kids, and everyone will know. Okay, I mean, I live in North London, so half the kids at half the schools are apparently all thinking they're trans. Same as California and New York. They're social contagion. But it's amazing, how many people will have come across this. They've seen the propaganda on the BBC. That's what it is. Seen all that, and people are understandably worried. Yeah, and of course it gets pushed whether or not you as a parent want your kid to go down this line. I've got friends who are absolutely in despair of what their kids are seeing. But it goes into schools, and there are books in your school library, and there is a diversity officer at your local primary school. And as we've just been discussing, Whitehall is using our taxes to pay people like Stonewall and Mermaids to push pride stuff. I mean, again, be great about being gay, that's fantastic, but pushing this agenda, the trans ideology, political ideology agenda on our children, on our schools, on the NHS, on all our workplaces. But children are the most vulnerable. But Julia, let's be clear, that's why our taxes have to go up this week, because we all know that we need to spend more money encouraging kids to experiment on themselves, to sterilise themselves and mutilate their body. This comes into the BBC board executives are going to be quizzed by MPs today. Samir Shah, the chairman, Robbie Gibb, who apparently outrageously is appointed as a Tory appointee, so Robbie Gibb, and Caroline Thompson from the board, even though there's been plenty of Labour appointees over the years. It is his political appointment. That's what it should be. But also the whistleblower, Michael Prescott, the one who wrote that whole internal memo about the bias. And again, we've still got the issue of the bias over Gaza. We've still got the issue of the bias, against Brexit. We've got the bias over all these other things. But one of the things I'm most concerned about, actually, I think the moral issue of their reporting on Gaza is outrageous. Their bias against Trump, obviously that panorama. But the thing that's the most actual dangerous to our children is their bias over the trans ideology. But, Julia, I can give everyone a spoiler in case they were considering watching the Culture, Media and Sports Select Committee in Parliament today. Don't listen to Ian instead. In case they were considering, I'll tell you exactly what's going to happen. You're going to see Labour and Lib Dem MPs queuing up after themselves to pretend that the problem is not that we have a taxpayer-funded broadcaster that you have to pay, otherwise you get criminally prosecuted. The problem is not that is putting out, broadcasting objectively false information about a litany of topics. The problem is that people pointed that out. The problem is that we've got Trumpian attacks on the BBC. It is not Trumpian to demand that a taxpayer-funded national broadcaster broadcast things that are true, that they undertake basic due diligence. But we're going to hear a whole lot about the fact that Robbie Gibb, who used to be the head of BBC Westminster, then was Director of Communications in Downing Street, got put onto the BBC board. You won't hear a whisper about the fact that James Pennell, a literal former Labour cabinet minister, got made the BBC's Director of Strategy. Nobody will care about this. And loads of openly Labour supporting people who worked for The Guardian and everything, being appointed head of to news roles. All you need to know about the BBC is back in the day when they used to have newspapers delivered, they did an FOI about which newspapers were getting delivered to the BBC. There was 10 times as many copies of The Guardian as there was The Telegraph. I believe most of the copies of The Guardian sold within the M25 are actually at the BBC. Yeah, I mean, there you are. Well, we'll talk about that. I've no doubt we'll be talking about that tomorrow. I have a funny feeling things are going to kick off somewhat. Things have certainly been kicking off in Ukraine and have been kicking off in Geneva over the last couple of days, as we've seen urgent talks being held ahead of a deadline random deadline set on Thursday by Donald Trump about basically coming to a peace plan, an agreement on a peace plan in Ukraine. We had a 28-point peace plan basically leaked over the weekend. Some are saying, including some claiming Marco Rubio, the US Secretary of State, has even said that the peace plan is actually pretty much written by the Russians. And you'd be forgiven for thinking that was true, given that it is an entirely pro-Russian, anti-Ukraine so-called peace plan. Some would say it's simply a surrender document for the Ukrainians who fought so valiantly for almost 4 years now to save their country. Well, let's talk about this with someone who's been to Ukraine, we've spoken to many times on the show. Andrew Fox, he's an Associate Fellow at the Henry Jackson Society, also co-host of the Brink podcast. A very good afternoon to you, Andrew.
Good afternoon, Julia.
Thank you for joining us. First of all, can we just sort of work our way through, what did you make of this so-called 28-point peace plan and the key measures in it for Ukraine?
Well, there are some really unpleasant little hand grenades in here. And I think the first thing to point out is that Europe and Ukraine were blindsided by this deal. Nobody saw this coming, and it's just been leaked out of nowhere. The first provision we're talking about is having to give up the areas of Ukraine that Russia hasn't even managed to take by war yet.
Yeah,
So Russia is going to be awarded chunks of Ukraine that they haven't even managed to put a foot on.
And these are crucial tracts of land, aren't they?
They are, because they contain what's called the fortress belt. So a bunch of fortified towns and cities that essentially would make it incredibly difficult for Russia to get further into Ukraine. And of course, if those are given over to Russia, then it turns the tables, and it means they're incredibly hard for Ukraine to defend. It's going to make a future Russian invasion of Ukraine much easier. There are also clauses on limiting the size of the Ukrainian armed forces, on banning any NATO troops or any Ukrainian joining of NATO in the future. And then the United States have given some very unspecified and non-specific security guarantees. And what we're effectively seeing is Ukraine having to outsource their security to Washington and Moscow. That's the end
good
result.
luck with that. I mean, again, with a US president who has been skittish, I think it's the politest way of putting it, on Ukraine, and a Russian president who's made it very clear he doesn't even think Ukraine exists as a sovereign nation state. It is extraordinary. But the idea that you get any guarantee, bearing in mind there was a guarantee, was there not, when nuclear weapons from Ukraine were handed back to Russia? US and the UK and Russia all agreed these, and we have a duty of care having agreed that treaty. But it is extraordinary that an agreement that gives the idea that you would give an invading army, although it's de facto, it's not de jure, that you would give them land they haven't even conquered, but land that, you say, those fortress towns, which would make it easy for them to go, we'll just regroup, we'll just sort a bit of we'll refuel and give our men a little bit of a rest, and then we'll come back for more. From a man who Putin has made it very clear he has no intention of stopping. I mean, there was talk that Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State of the US, that he'd actually told some senators in a briefing call from his plane that actually this was actually a Russian plan originally. By all accounts, he's pretty sensible on Ukraine and stands with the Europeans, but is trying to persuade his boss. And everyone right now is trying to sort of basically work around the Sun King, Donald Trump, being basically at the knees, weirdly, of Vladimir Putin. I mean, we're told that there is a coalition of the willing Zoom meeting tomorrow. There's been all these meetings in Geneva. Marco Rubio's flown home, though. But there's a real concern as Europe and other NATO members scrabble to try and change this document that they are fighting against time.
Absolutely, and they've been completely wrong-footed by this. Now, there's reports today they put out a counter-proposal, but here we see Trump's art of the deal in action, where he sets out a truly appalling first offer and then allows people to negotiate back upwards from there. But here's the killer difference, and it's that this is simply an offer straight out of the Kremlin. It gives Russia everything they wanted. It also allows Washington to make a tremendous profit from this peace deal. There's a clause in there about 50% of reconstruction profits going to Washington, Ukraine paying America for security assurances. And it's very much the case that the art of the deal in this case is just the art of the Kremlin's deal. There's no way around it. It's Russia's wish list with a bunch of grift for Donald Trump sprinkled on top.
Well, I mean, there are some people pointing out, and I'm sorry, and I think we know what happened in Gaza, and whether that works out long term or not. The hostages who were being starved and tortured in tunnels are home now with their families and loved ones. And Donald Trump, played an absolute blinder by solidly backing Israel, and yet he has this complete blind spot in Ukraine. And there are many people saying, and I'm afraid I'm among those, which is, and again, it's not Trump derangement syndrome, is if he isn't basically being a paid actor on behalf of Vladimir Putin, he's sodding well acting like one.
Very true. And look, the Gaza deal is not even a good deal either. There's never actually been a ceasefire. They've still been exchanging rounds every day.
But he got the hostages back.
He did get the hostages home, and that's the key point.
I don't think Joe Biden could have done that.
No, but he did it by bribing Turkey and Qatar. So I think arguably when it comes to Israel, he set a bunch of hand grenades in the sand that are going to go off further down the line in future. So that wasn't a particularly good deal either, although right now the outcome looks half decent. But yes,
Ken, we'll come back. Actually, we'll come back to Gaza. But this is it. But I mean, do you think that Donald Trump is? I mean, he does seem to just do Vladimir Putin's bidding. There's all talk about Putin being invited back into G8 and all of that. I mean, it's just. Vladimir Putin seems to me to be getting away with, well, quite literally murder.
Well, look, Trump has never seen a dictator that he didn't want to do a deal with. If you look at his recent tour of the Middle East and some of the deeply suspect people that he's taken huge amounts of money for America from, Qatar being the obvious one, but also Saudi Arabia's human rights record still isn't that great, and various other countries. Don't forget, he's the guy that did the deal with the Taliban that handed Afghanistan back to the Taliban. Yes, it was Biden that bungled the execution, but it was Trump's deal. He also, of course, made a deal with North Korea. I mean, this is a guy who sees strongmen, sees all he wishes he could be, and is thoroughly inclined to give them a far better deal than anyone else on the planet would give them.
It is quite bizarre. I mean, what chance do you think that the Ukrainians would actually go ahead with this? Because there's always this talk that Ukrainians can't do a peace deal, or President Zelensky can't do it, unless he is, under the Ukrainian constitution, unless the Ukrainian people agree. But actually, if it's a de facto, if it's just the reality is this is where the line is, and it's not recognised legally, by United Nations elsewhere, then there doesn't have to be a constitution. But there is also a requirement, and even the Europeans agreed this, that he has to hold elections within 100 days, which could see him fall from power. But do you think the Ukrainian people would be willing to agree to any semblance of this deal that's been put on the table?
I'd be very surprised. Having been down on the front with the Ukrainian army, this is an army with high morale. It was only 2 months ago that we were out there, and these are guys who want to fight on and feel that they can fight on. And there's been an awful lot of blood spilled over that terrain that they've been holding right now, and to then be asked to withdraw from that line and then hand over everything in front of them to the Russians, I think would be an extremely bitter pill to swallow. Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about Gaza, though. Of course, never out of the news for very long. Of course, we've got this BBC board members who are going to be probed today by the Culture Secretary. And, of course, one of the biggest issues has been about their coverage of Gaza and where we are there. I mean, you say, look, it's a ceasefire that's not really holding. I see reports, of course, always blaming Israel for killing people. But, of course, these are people who fired on their soldiers. Well, yeah, that's what happens in war. But do you see any prospect at all, and you touched on it already, of this some sort of ceasefire holding, some sort of international force going into the Gaza to maintain the peace? Well, militarily, it's a phenomenally tricky challenge. Gaza is currently split in half. On one half, there's ruins that's held by the IDF, and there's about 2,000 Gazans in there. And on the other half of Gaza, there are 2 million Gazans that are all currently still under Hamas's control. Yeah. If you look at it sort of from a military planning perspective, it's not a mission that I would want to take on. Never mind with an international force from a variety of different countries who all have different rules of engagement, communications errors, radios that don't talk to one another. Yeah. I mean, this is a phenomenally challenging environment to go into, even if you're just the IDF. And I spoke to them just this morning, actually, and they fully expect to be resuming hostilities in the short to medium term. Well, Hamas have never accepted the deal. They haven't laid down their weapons. That was an absolutely crucial early requirement. And there's no way, it's just no way that there's no government in the world of any country in the world that would accept having a terrorist force in charge of the land next to them who've done what they've done and who promised to do it again. There's no country in the world. No, and you've been there. You've seen what they did on 7th of October, and I still think the world. I still think the world doesn't understand just how horrific that attack was. It wasn't just another terrorist attack. This was something on a completely different level.
Absolutely.
And you couldn't leave that.
I want to talk to you about related to a terror attack, that attack on the synagogue. There's two stories I want to talk to you about back home, and I know you've taken a big interest in these, particularly that Tel Aviv Maccabi match that took place against Aston Villa. The West Midlands Police concluded that it was high risk for Maccabi Tel Aviv supporters to go to the Europa League game at Aston Villa back on the 6th of November. There was a recommendation from the local authority that they be banned. As it was, big outcry, and Maccabi Tel Aviv basically said we're not going to accept any of our allocation of tickets. So it kind of moved the issue on. But I know people like you were attending, basically, so on behalf of people being told basically it's not safe to attend because, being Jewish would be an issue. But it appears now, and although it's front page, it was in the Sunday Times yesterday, it's actually a story originally from the Jewish Chronicle from an old colleague of mine, Lauren Bellcross. Hello to you, Lauren. It's basically saying that Westminster Police used false intelligence. They made claims in a confidential report, which the Jewish Chronicle got to see, claiming that Israeli fans back in a match in Amsterdam last year, they'd thrown innocent members of the public into the river. Between 500 and 600 had intentionally targeted Muslim communities, 5,000 police officers deployed in response. But the National Police Force of the Netherlands says this is all completely false, and it was actually there was literally like a hunt the Jew thing started by extremist Islamist Muslims, and it wasn't started by the Maccabi fans at all, and that all the claims that the West Midlands Police made were, quite frankly, made up. What do you make of this?
Well, the Dutch have fully thrown West Midlands Police under the bus, and rightly so. I mean, it's a matter of court record, and it's very easily accessible to anyone to go and see what the transcripts of those trials, what came out in evidence there, and the WhatsApp organised Jew hunt that was planned several days in advance, and they were even bussing in people from around the Netherlands to take part in said Jew hunt, as they called it themselves. The really interesting thing is there's an organisation called Hein Rajab Foundation who submitted a dossier of evidence to West Midlands Police about supposed misdemeanours by Maccabi fans. They have a founder who is very closely tied to Hezbollah. He's not a member of Hezbollah, but he certainly has connections. And it's West Midlands Police have taken this dossier, and if that is what they've based their decision on, then West Midlands Police's Chief Constable's position is simply untenable.
Well, indeed,
that is a basic intelligence failure that is so catastrophic that his job surely should be under question.
Well, again, if that's what they think is evidence, I really do worry about what the evidence they're presenting when they go to court. The Chief Constable, Westminster Police, is Craig Guilford. Nick Timothy, who's an Aston Villa fan, a Conservative MP, former senior aide to Theresa May, he says if the Chief Constable cannot justify the actions of the force, he will need to resign. Very clear about that. What do you think about the Met Police, though? Extraordinarily, only a few weeks ago, the Metropolitan Police found that they did have it within the law to ban UKIP, a political party, from having a march through the East End of London, through Whitechapel, on the basis that it was a very large Muslim Bangladeshi community and it was going to cause trouble. They banned that, but they then allowed a local Muslim Bangladeshi community to stage some very unpleasant things were being said, and huge numbers, hundreds of masked men in black, all in black hoodies and black facial masks, chanting some blatantly anti-Semitic things. They were allowed to have their march. And again, last night, extraordinarily, pro-Palestine protesters who were largely Jewish, but they were anti-Zionist Jews, they basically carried out a protest outside a London synagogue in North London, outside St John's Wood United Synagogue last night, basically saying, anti-Semitism isn't anti-Zionism isn't anti-Semitism, but they were basically haranguing and shouting at ordinary Jewish families going in to pray, to worship. There was an event there also about people wanting to move to Israel. I wonder why they want to do that, given the state of play right now. And the police have put out loads of messages saying, we simply don't have the powers to prevent a demonstration outside a place of worship. What do you make of that claim?
The threshold is incredibly high to ban a march. In the case of the UKIP one, it has to be serious disorder or serious disruption, and they considered it met that threshold because a UKIP march, bearing in mind UKIP, of course, have gone very much to the right from where they were during the heydays of the Brexit campaign, was likely to spark a violent response from the locals. So that one did reach the threshold and they could get that over the line. And that does have to be a very high level of potential violence. The real problem here, though, is our slavish adherence to human rights legislation. We've talked time and time again about the ECHR in the context of immigration. This is when it comes to protest. At the end of the day, the Met have lost a fortune. Millions of taxpayers' money have had to be paid out to protesters that they have tried to stop from protesting, to the point now where they've gone completely the other way, and they're putting up their hands and saying we can't do anything about it, or we'll just get sued, and that's your money. So the key answer here is that the right to protest is enshrined in law, but we need to be better at drawing lines to say it can be protected, but it mustn't encroach on anybody else's rights.
No, but also
and that's why we're getting the balance wrong.
And the right to protest. The thing is, you've got an issue with Israel. Why are you outside a synagogue? Why are you not outside the Israeli embassy? That would be a reasonable place. I mean, it's difficult to be outside on a private road, again, for understandable security reasons in Kensington, in southwest London. But the idea is that, well, you can't do something because there might be a violent response from the people who don't like it. So if Jews going to the synagogue said, well, we will be violent, we will attack those protesters outside our synagogue, then the police would ban it. But because the Jews going to synagogue in North London won't be violent, because they're not going to turn up, they're not going to shout abuse, they're not going to shout racist things, they're not going to be actually physically attacking people, then they have to put up with that. I'm an atheist. I mean, it's such an important part of my belief system that I'm an atheist. But I will march, and have done, from the right for anyone of any faith to be able to worship in peace in this country. It's a crucial part. When you talk about the right to protest, you also have the right to worship in peace, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely, and you're completely right. If the Jewish community was more violent, this would.
Well, maybe that's the answer. Maybe that's the answer. That the Jewish community needs to say, well, we will be violent in return, so you. But they don't, and they
know they won't mean it either, because there's a key difference between certain communities. One is prepared to use violence and one isn't. And look,
and you're saying that based on the facts that we have seen, the threats of violence, the reality of people tooling up, and
Yeah, like the march that we saw in London, where the black masks were deployed, and the hooded face coverings.
Very intimidating.
And then, quite amusingly, the guy's saying there's no need to be aggressive, and we're the same, and no, we're not on the side mate. It was quite funny, actually. Yeah. But look, here's the key issue, I think, for me. There is a coordination to these attacks on synagogues as well. There were protests around Europe outside synagogues. There were protests in America outside synagogues, all on the same day.
Yeah. They know what they're doing. Also, by the way, you say
serious questions to ask about the coordination.
Exactly, but also, Jewish people in a synagogue, we know what happened in Manchester. It is a miracle that only 2 men died. One of them, sadly, at a bullet from a police officer trying to kill the people inside. It is a miracle that we didn't lose dozens of people that day. Why on earth would Jewish people be afraid in a synagogue from having protesters outside? I wonder why. Because of the reality that they live in. It is extraordinary. Andrew Fox, it's been great to talk to you. Always lovely to have you on the show. Associate Fellow at the Henry Jackson Society, co-host of the Brink podcast, which, by the way, I think it's like the top military podcast in the world, I believe I'm right in saying right now. Doing very well indeed, and quite rightly. Sam Armstrong, you've been listening to all of that. Come back in on what you want to come back on.
Well, I know our next guest is talking about this too, but you wait till you hear what they've got planned if you burn a copy of the Quran, because supposedly the reaction of the Islamic extremists that slashes you, stabs you, threatens to kill you, justifies you being prosecuted for a hate crime.
Absolutely, we're going to be talking about that. We'll take a quick call first up, though. This is Talk We Are, the home of common sense.
So yeah, I mean, he sounds like he's an extra from Riverdance, and no surprises that he's backing the ECHR. And there's reluctance to any kind of changes to the ECR. So many countries are signatories, and so few want to do anything about it. So I think he's right to the extent that he says it won't change migratory flows. What he means by that is that people will still come out of certain countries, sometimes because of conflict and sometimes because of economic factors. That's true, but the difference is leaving the ECHR is what happens when they arrive here, if they arrive here in the first place. And that's the big difference.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, the Home of Common Sense, for me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. Let's get to your calls. 12:32. Carl's on the line in London. Morning to you, Carl. So afternoon, what do you want to say?
Hi, Julia. Yeah, I remember in the 50s and early 60s, when you was unemployed, you had to go every day to what they called the labour exchange to show you were looking for work. Every
sign
day.
on. Yeah, you used to literally see queues of people. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I think all the government since then have made it so easy not to go to work. You know, if you imagine this winter, people that are out of work have to queue every day outside a labour exchange. I think a lot of them would change their minds and think, oh,
do you know what? I'll go and get a job in the warmth. Well, yeah, but again, the proof that you have to show, look, there are people who are desperately trying to get a job and really struggling in the field, you know, vaguely that they want to do, or something that will pay enough to, you know, pay the rent and the mortgage, who just can't get work. And I do get that. But an awful lot of young people are going, oh, I don't want to do that. Well, tough, you've got no skills, you've got no experience.
I
go
agree.
and do any job we find for you.
There are a lot of people that are generally looking for work, but there are millions that are generally don't want to go to work. And if they have to get up every day, they had to get up every day and stand out in the freezing cold this winter, I think it would change their minds. I think, well,
completely agree. Well, that's why I'm in favour of workfare, certainly for under 30s. I really do.
Do you remember during elections they had the billboards with the
Labour isn't working. Yeah.
With a queue outside, well, they called it the dole office then, didn't they?
Yeah.
You know, I think if they brought that back, I think you'll find a lot of people. Of course, and the other thing it would do, Julia, it would stop the black economy, because if they're standing outside there every day,
they're not working for below minimum wage. Exactly. I've said this story many times before, but one of my best mates who works in a benefits office, she said, I said, how can you tell if someone really wants to look for work? If someone really wants to work, she goes, oh, you can always tell because they sign on. I mean, yeah. She goes, you never see them again because they've got a job. Because they take jobs because they want to work. Simple as that. Carl, thank you for that. I love that idea. Jo is on the line in Surrey. She wants to talk about the puberty blockers. What do you want to say, Jo?
Hi, Julia. I just want to kind of put it out there. Why are medical professionals still carrying on with this? You know, we've got Hannah Barnes' book, Time to Think. We've got Abigail Schreier's book. Irreversible Damage. We've got people, whistleblowers from the Tavistock, whistleblowers from gender clinics.
Got the Cass review.
Got everything saying, you know, this is bad. You know, we had lockdown, we had children online. It's a social contagion. You know, we've never had this amount of kids identifying as something. Other, you know, we had punks, we've had all the other things in the past, but now we've got this social contagion, and now we've got our NHS pumping money to experiment on children. And what I would like to know are who are the members of the boards of these people that have authorised it, and do they have any financial interest in these companies that are providing the puberty blockers? And do they set to profit from it in the long run? You know, shareholders, all of these people behind the scenes, the finance behind it,
I'm sure they have to declare that, but again, I'd like to know. But I think most of it's not even about money for them. I mean, the companies, the drug companies, yes, but for these people, it's ideological.
Yes, but the people that are on these boards, they'll have pensions, they'll have investments. Yeah. What are those investments in? What are their shares in? You know, we need someone to do a deep dive into these people, and do these people set to profit from this?
Very, very good question, Joe. Thank you so much. Couldn't agree with you more. We'll take a quick break now, and then we're actually going to be talking in the next 20 minutes or so to James Esses, who's talking about a legal challenge against that puberty blocker trial. But first up, we are going to talk to the brilliant, the wonderful former police officer Harry Miller, founder of Fair Cop, about once again two-tier policing and once again backdoor blasphemy laws. That's up next. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
A very, very good afternoon to you. 12:39 is the time. Let's get straight to my next guest. Harry Miller is former police officer and founder of Fair Cop. Good afternoon to you, Harry.
Good afternoon, Julia.
Thank you so much for joining us. There's a couple of big stories I want to talk to you about. First up, I just find this mind-blowing. The Crown Prosecution Service has appealed against a High Court judge's decision to overturn the criminal conviction of a man who burned a Koran outside the Turkish consulate in London. This is Hamit Koskan. He was initially found guilty of a religiously aggravated public order offence, having shouted F Islam and various other things while holding a flaming Koran in his hand. He was attacked by a man who went back into the Turkish embassy to come back out with a knife, ruthlessly stabbed at him. He was kicked on the ground. Astonishing, the man who attacked him got a suspended sentence, even though he's on video, could easily have killed him, and wasn't charged with attempted murder, which is what he should have been charged with. Hamit Koskan, he appealed, didn't he? And then he basically was found, to have his so-called crime overturned. Why is the Crown Prosecution Service appealing against that judgment?
Well, it's completely and utterly bizarre, isn't it? I mean, think about what the Crown is. The Crown was based, our Crown as it stands right now, was based on an act of desecration when Henry VIII stuck two fingers up to the Pope and went around and started dissolving the monasteries. We have part of our freedom. Part of our freedom means that we have to be able to blaspheme, we have to be able to be rude, and against the dissolution of the monasteries, a simple book burning is child's play, quite frankly. I'm a Christian. I don't think book burning is particularly smart.
No.
You want to express your dislike of the Christian religion by burning a copy of the New Testament or the Old Testament or both. Frankly, I couldn't care less. And we need to have exactly the same principle when it comes to any other religion.
But also, we're not talking.
I'm
with you. Look, I personally, I wouldn't burn any book, and I certainly wouldn't burn someone else's religious text. I think it's rude, and I don't think it's good manners. But I think it is perfectly legitimate for someone who has, in the case of Hamid Koshkin, he has fled Turkey because he has been persecuted because of his non-religious, his non-Islamic views, to stand outside a political building, the Turkish embassy, and make his statement. We no longer have blasphemy laws in this country. It's his own property. He's entitled to do what he sodding well wants with his own property and give his views on a religion with his own property. I always thought it was extraordinary he was arrested anyway, but particularly given that the argument given by the police and indeed by the judge in his original trial was that by definition he must have been provocative because someone got a knife and attacked him. So therefore what he did must have been bad, as opposed to thinking maybe we have a problem with the people who think that if they don't like what someone says about their religion, they go and get a knife and stab someone.
Well, this is the argument that's straight out of the domestic abusers playbook.
Isn't it? Yes.
Absolutely. Where you go, they made me do it. They did something that so offended me, I had no choice but to slap them around the face, stab them, do whatever. And what is quite astonishing here is that the Crown Prosecution Service have said, see, we agree with this. Yeah. It's an act of provocation against the religion of Islam. Now, of course, there wasn't any law called Provoking Islam, so they made one up. And then when they were caught out for making up a law, they said, oh, an innocent mistake. Now, you're the Crown Prosecution Service. You have one job, and that is to, first of all, understand what the law of the land is.
Yes.
And then to prosecute it without fear and without favour. But that's not what the Crown Prosecution Service wants to do. And in conjunction with many of our chief constables, the law is now secondary to something else. And the thing it is secondary to is religious conformity. This is the Conformity Prosecution Service, not the Crown
But the thing is also, I mean, you think about, when we talk about threats to someone saying, like, oh, I don't know, the Batley Grammar School teacher who simply showed an image of the Prophet Muhammad to have a conversation about the attacks on Charlie Hebdo with his children in a religious studies class. I mean, he's still in, was it 5 years? He's still in hiding now with his wife and family because of the threats. Not a single person who made death threats to him, which was considered to be so convincing that the police warned him he had to go into hiding. Not a single person has been charged with that. So it's okay to make a death threat against somebody for going about their completely lawful job as a school teacher. But it's not okay to do something that's not against the law, which is to burn your own Quran.
Yeah, exactly. This is all victim blaming. I think as well about West Yorkshire, where there was that young child dropped a copy of his own Quran on the school floor.
Which he brought in as a part of a bet, and he's a kid.
Yeah. He was denounced for it, and senior police officers sat with the imams to denounce the family. That is blasphemy law by the back door. And what worries me here is this is giving a green light to every religious fundamentalist and ideological nutter to go out there, kick off, commit some kind of atrocity, and then turn around and use the defence of they made me do it. And then the Crown Prosecution Service, on current form, along with the police, will say, see, we...
Well, and again, this is because the police and our politicians and the courts, the Crown Prosecution Service are completely and utterly imbued with this ideological stance on all these different things. I must ask you also about these demonstrations, protests outside a synagogue in St John's Wood, North London yesterday. It's actually really very near me, and I'm gutted I didn't sit too late because I would have happily gone down there to show my solidarity. But ordinary Jewish families going into synagogue. There was a couple of events there. One of the events was about people moving to Israel. I wonder why they'd want to do that. And these largely Jewish but anti-Zionist protesters, not outside the Israeli embassy, outside a synagogue, just a few weeks after 2 men were murdered, trying to protect other people in a synagogue by a complete lunatic terrorist attacker. Islamist terror, and the police said there was nothing they could do. They couldn't prevent this protest. You're a former police officer, could they?
Yes, of course they could prevent this protest. There's a whole bunch of public order acts that allow the police to move in and protect people from this. Once again, the police took a decision to allow this to happen because, unfortunately, hatred of Jews and hatred of Israel is one of the last hatreds that the respectable people are allowed to indulge in. That's the way it seems to me. And so they allow it. And by allowing it, so obviously, they, in fact, condone the message. It's not that long ago, is it, Julia, since a Jewish man exiting his own front door was arrested for his own safety because his presence might have offended a protest. This is where we're at. Anti-Semitism is absolutely rife in this country, and the Crown Prosecution Service, the police, and far too many MPs are absolutely complicit.
Absolutely. Still very, very near the synagogue. A few years ago, was it 2021? Those men, license plate clear, fully clear on video, pro-Palestinian flags, shouting about killing Jews, raping their wives and daughters. No prosecution, nothing. They were arrested, they're identified. No one prosecuted them. The police are making decisions that are clearly very questionable here. So appreciate you joining us. Voice of reason, as always, Harry Miller, former police officer and founder of Fair Cop. Sam Armstrong, I want to come back to you on the Hamid Kushkin case because you're at the Free Speech Union as well. You know Hamid Kushkin. You've been working with him. What did he make? I mean, he got prosecuted. The man who attacked him got a suspended sentence. Astonishingly, then he won his High Court appeal, which I think Free Speech Union funded, and now CPS are coming at him again.
Yeah, it was a pretty unpleasant exchange. I did it over text. He struggles a bit with English, but did it over text, and you could tell that his heart sunk because he'd actually come to the UK because he'd been a victim of a terrorist attack, and his family had been a victim of a terrorist attack in Turkey. He protested against Islamism. He was locked up there for 7 years for it. He was about to get locked up again, and he came to the UK thinking he would be free to speak his mind in a Christian country about the religion that, in his view, is an evil and malevolent one. And in exchange, what did he get? He's been prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, one of the most senior prosecutors in the country sent by the CPS to prosecute him, and his attacker, despite having, in my view, attempted to murder him.
Oh, no, I don't think it's... If you could only see that video, you know that was attempted murder.
And what does he get? A suspended sentence.
Yeah. Oh, it's just
tells you everything you need to know.
But the CPS choose what they choose. If you've got a video of someone seeing someone they don't like, someone doing something, and going into a building to get a knife, to come back, to then and repeatedly, I'm going to kill you while stabbing at him. How is that not attempted murder? It's a miracle that it wasn't murder. But anyway, 12:48's time. We're going to take a break. Then we're going to talk to the brilliant psychotherapist James Esses about his plan to take legal action against this extraordinary medical trial, basically child experimentation using puberty blockers that's been announced by the Health Secretary Wes Streeting. He's up next. Stay tuned for that. This is Talk.
In terms of your question around taxes, there are no additional tax rises needed beyond the ones that I've set out.
Don't need to increase taxes. I'm not coming back with more borrowing or more taxes.
I will not increase your national insurance. I will not increase your VAT, and I will not increase your income tax.
We don't need to come back for more. We've done that now. We've wiped the slate clean.
The economic circumstances have declined, deteriorated since a year ago. We are having to look at taxes and spending.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, the Home of Common Sense, and there is no common sense when it comes to treating of children who, for some reason, parents, doctors and indeed the children themselves think are trans, because there are no such things as trans children or children born in the wrong body, but that's not what the ideologists seem to think. And it turns out that our Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, is one of those, because he has agreed and approved to a study, a medical experimentation on 200 children, some as young as 10 years old at primary school, with puberty blockers, even though we already know that they're unsafe. We know they're unsafe. There's been a big review into them by Hilary Cass. Even the Health Secretary himself has said he believed them to be unsafe. But we're going to do a little bit of guinea pig experimenting on children. Well, not if one man, and indeed many others who are trying to fight this, can get their way with a legal challenge to stop it. James Esses joins us. He's a psychotherapist and founder of Just Therapy. Good afternoon to you, James.
Good afternoon, Julia.
Thank you so much for joining us. I saw your tweets on this and I'm like, oh my God, this is just terrifying. This is happening. Explain what is happening and explain what Wes Streeting, the Health Secretary's justification, and indeed the medics' justification for this basically guinea pig experimentation on children is going to be about.
Well, the whole thing is a bit of a travesty, really, Julia. You know, we were told there was a puberty blocker ban. Society was celebrating. We thought this is the end of the matter. And then we discover actually there's this clinical trial in the works. And I obtained some undercover footage of Health Secretary Wes Streeting from a couple of months ago speaking at an LGBT event. And he said that even banning the puberty blockers in the first place made him, quote unquote, very uncomfortable. So that tells you the measure of the man that we're working with here. But this trial has been going on, all the research and the planning for it in secret. Myself and my legal team have been trying to obtain some disclosure, some transparency. It's been essentially a conspiracy of silence. And then it emerges last weekend that actually the approval has already come through and they're about to commence recruiting hundreds of children, as you said, as young as 10 years old.
And who has to approve this? Does it have to be approved by the Health Secretary? Could he stop it if he wanted?
Well, it had to go through various bodies. I mean, it's quite a complicated setup. It's been run by King's College London. The Health Regulatory Agency are part of this, as is the Medicines and Healthcare Regulatory Agency. So there's a few bodies. This did have to go through an ethical approval process.
Really? And they passed?
Well, supposedly. Now, again, there's a complete lack of transparency as to exactly what that process followed. But, you know, we were not surprised. We had a feeling that this was going to be rolled out one way or the other. But it's the speed now at which it's happening.
Yeah. But hold on a minute. We were told the Cass review, she was very, very clear that there was no proper testing. The only children who should ever get puberty blockers was part of a medical trial, because there'd been no follow-up of the thousands of children who've had puberty blockers over the years. But we know about a lot of the downsides of them, the impact on brain development, the bone density, but also, I mean, just stopping children going through a normal part of growing up is clearly wrong on normal, healthy bodies. But am I not right in thinking that Hilary Cass, who wrote that review, she said there should be a trial, that she's welcome that there's a trial?
She did. And that was one of the biggest disappointments that came out of this report.
Because we don't really need a trial, because we have had thousands of children already experimented on.
Correct. Well, the Tavistock actually did their own trial back in 2011, and it, we've never seen any study that has shown there's any benefit to come from puberty blockers, only harm. The government themselves, when they banned the puberty blockers last year, said that there was an unacceptable safety risk, right? And the fact is, we could be doing studies on animals, and whatever your thoughts are on animal testing, but you should be doing that as a precursor to using children as literal guinea pigs.
But also, I mean, I don't understand how they're saying children as young as 10, and they're not going to exclude, children who, I mean, again, large number of kids who've gone through this, of children who are, autistic, children who are in care, children with other mental health problems, such as depression, eating disorders. Huge number of the children who've gone through were actually children who were just gay, particularly girls. They're just gay. There's nothing wrong with them. They're just gay. And yet they're going to put these children to bed. How can a child, particularly a child as young as 10, how can a child consent to have a medical treatment that they don't need? It's not like they've got cancer and mum's signing them going, we'll try anything experimental to save my child's life. These are children who are perfectly healthy, but they're going to be given a drug that will damage their bodies and their brains and their development, possibly lead them onto a road that would make them infertile. How could they possibly consent to that?
No, they don't have the capacity to consent. I mean, this is the problem, and it's a mental illness here that's driving their obsession and their desperation, and yet we're now giving them essentially a loophole around the ban to say, come one, come all, you can receive the blockers that you so desire. I work with children every single week as part of my clinical practice. And these children, the reasons they give me for wanting puberty blockers, the young boy saying, I don't like the fact that boys have body hair. I mean, that is the type of kind of regressive, stereotypical thinking that's been hammered into these children now. So that, well, if you don't like body hair, well, then maybe it's better off that you're a girl. Have you thought about puberty blockers?
Well, no, but that's literally what is happening. I mean, it's terrible. It's an ideology. But I mean, you want to work on a legal challenge. And I know your people at Sex Matters want to do that as well, many other organisations. And you've been working with Kira Bell, who is a detransitioner who won that famous court case, saying, I was far too young. You couldn't possibly expect me to have, to been able to consent to the treatment I've got, which has damaged my body and my life forever. What chances have you, and how quickly can you do it before another single child in this country is given these drugs?
Well, we've been working on this for a number of months. We've got a strong legal team. We are fully funded. And that means that if this needs to go all the way to the Supreme Court, we will be taking it to the Supreme Court. We're currently working on our pre-action letters, etc. We're trying to see if we're going to get an injunction to try and stop the recruitment of these children in the first place. We're going to throw absolutely everything we possibly can on this. We do not want a single child to ingest this poison.
Absolutely.